most important cadastral meeting the city has ever had. Is that a fair statement?
Okay, started recording. Yeah.
Okay. So what we see here is that we have just taken the workflow that you sent and we recorded, like, what are the different steps that you do. And I just want to go over these and then show you like what's parallel, and we will discuss and maybe add some notes here. What we're doing is the first step that you do is checking out the tiles. Okay. And in this one, in the new system, you're not going to be checking out any tiles, though technically you could if you wanted to, but we are instead going to perform the work on versioning. So every editor has their own version that they can work on. Also, in the beginning, we recommend not to have more than one editor work in the same location or on the same project area, so that you can avoid something called conflicts. Okay, so given that, then just remember that we have this versioning, and you all know how to create the versions and how to switch to the version and edit in the version. So I'm assuming that that's all kind of like squared out. The next step is navigation to location. Navigate to location. So what you did was you probably said, okay, this is where it is, and you just went and you zoomed there, and you can find locations using the location tool in ArcGIS, ArcMap. So that's equivalent of, and then there in the editor guide, you can find by, there's help there to show you how to get to a location or find a parcel or things like that. So that one is also okay, no problem there. The next one is making existing lots to historic parcels. In your workflow, we noticed that existing lot lines are turned to historical. In ArcMap, you can turn the parcel historical, and along with that, the existing lines turn to be historical. You just need to right-click with your parcel editor tool and then choose historical. Okay, so that's the other thing that we have noticed. So what you were doing was select every line, and then you said historical. Okay, so that's the difference. Any questions on that?
Once we make something historical, are there going to be, like in that case, we were taking a alley, which was a right-of-way line, and turning it historical. If we went in and there was some kind of parcel line that was in the middle of that lot, we would have turned that historical also. Are they going to be look differently visually in the new system, or are they just going to both be some other kind of line type? How does that, what's the visual representation going to be?
Right now, we only gave a different symbol for the parcels that are historical, but we can certainly build a layer with lines that, we can certainly make a copy of the existing or represent them. The lines also as historical. We can show that to you how that works. Okay.
It's nice to be able to see the difference between a historical lot line and a historical right-of-way line. Right-of-way lines have to be vacated, and historical lines just can be mapped. Parcel lines can just be mapped over. So knowing the difference is nice to have.
Okay. Okay. We will show you. We will set that up. Okay. In your MXD, we can add that. We can take the existing lines layer and we can set up a definition query for historical. And
if it's
then
not something that happens automatically, then and if it's something that just has to be a part of our new process, then that's fine too. We just have to remember that when we're making something historical and we change it, then we need to layer it to or represent it how we want it represented as whatever it was previously.
Yeah, it's just a one-time thing. We just do it once, and as long as you remember that your MXD has that symbol, then you're going to have it automatically come up. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just a one-time thing. Okay. Okay. So the next thing is that we have set up the basis of bearing, and we are able to do that in the ArcMap also to set up the basis of bearing. We did kind of have to scratch our heads quite a bit of times as to why the bearing was in certain direction and all, but we just went with it, though it was a little confusing, I think. And so I would say we were able to set up the basis of bearing, and then the correction angle is displayed in CADME, but it wasn't displayed in ArcMap, I would like to say, but I'd like to show you exactly what happens after this. Then the next step that we had was manually calculate adjustment. This was Eswin's calculations he came up with, comparing the center line distance between the survey plan and the CADME data, and you came up with a ratio of 0.9986, and you multiplied that for the distance from the center line to create the break line on the street center line. So that's the value. So the first step then was that you created a break line for the center line, right? So here onwards, the story changes a little bit. Until here, we're kind of running parallel between ArcMap process and CADME process. But come to this point of exactly, drafting things where they should be entering distances and bearings, and then, creating a sketch line. You have created so many sketch lines, and you actually move them between layers. So all of this, I think I came up with, for the entire process, like 23 slides, and each slide having more than one step, right? So it's an intensive process that wherever in CADME you were creating a copy and it was going into a different layer, that step can be eliminated, because now you can copy parallel and to the specific layer that you would like to, you can choose that template. Okay, so
Yeah, and we were hoping for that.
Exactly. So those steps are all gone. But here's the thing, the main takeaway, and this is kind of saying that we have taken all of this process, we've gone through the recording, which we actually have here right now, right? We watched it over and over again to make sure that when we recreated that workflow, we documented and then we walked through these steps to get to that result there. So the thing is that in ArcGIS, in Parcel Fabric, you need to have a definition of a polygon, and this is what we thought is the best to do. You need to define your polygon before you move things to the Parcel Fabric, before you have it in Parcel Fabric. Because
when you're talking about this polygon is the outside boundary of the tract map, right?
It's anything really. It could be, because everything's polygons in your Parcel Fabric. Really, everything is supporting the polygons. You don't have just a line anywhere by itself, right? It's what you do have lines, but those lines are like supporting the polygon. If you have a right-of-way line, they're actually around the right-of-way polygon. If you have a right-of-way,
so does the line exist first, or does the polygon exist first?
the line comes first and then the polygon. But we thought the way, because when we looked at the number of parallels that you're doing, the copy offsets and the number of breakpoints you're having to create and all that, I mean, if you were digitizing the parcels, let's go to the last, maybe the last step over here. Okay, or even this step here. Look at this step. This is a center line, right? So you're adding this private center line over here, from starting from this point over here, and then you came here, you stopped here. For your workflow, you stopped here because you thought, okay, this is enough for me. Let me just, finish, do the remaining parts, right of and everything. Now, if you could complete up the center line, the polygon that it defines, that's ideal. You could do it straight off in Parcel Fabric. And correct me if I'm wrong, Cash. And that's the main thing, is that this center line, right-of-way center line, that polygon was not complete, and hence we couldn't do it directly in Parcel Fabric. We had to do something else, And our
If,
something
if
else,
we were doing that without any time constraints, we would have done that entire center line all the way around back to its attach point. So we wouldn't have stopped in that little area. If we're drafting a subdivision, we do it slightly different than what we did with our time constraints there. We would have completed that center line first.
right? What we thought and we thought is easier for, so maybe that was one possibility, right? But what we thought would have been, or the workflow that we came up with after looking at all of this process and everything, is that we thought, let's create 2 layers for you, sketch line layer and a construction line layer. Now we may or may not keep both of them. We may, get rid of them, get rid of one of the layers, but at least we need one layer. Why? Because we used Kogo to draft up all of those lines that you need and then keep deleting any extraneous lines. Okay. And so that was basically the thought process behind giving those 2 layers for you. And I want to really get onto your system right now so that we can show you, because what happens is those 2 layers helped us define this whole thing, and we came up with equivalent. And in the end, whatever polygon was complete, we actually copied it into the parcel fabric. So with that said, I just wanted to show you how this thing worked. Okay, because all the commands for doing those copy parallels and splitting the line, your break line is there in parcel fabric. Yes, it's called the same thing, break line, right? But to be able to break the line at different locations is also available inside ArcMap. And if you were to use these other layers that are outside parcel fabric for replicating this workflow, then you would use this other command. Okay, so we want to show you that process and see if that, so there's two ways of doing this, right? You can digitize the whole right-of-way center line, come back to it. Maybe that's something, but we also wanted to show you this other workflow where you can stop anywhere you like, finish up, because you are not necessarily finishing up the loop. Okay, so let me see how we can get back on your system. Lata?
Yeah, it didn't work for me. I have a question, Ted. Do you use Secure Link to log in, or do you just remote desktop?
I use VPN to log in.
Okay. VPN.
You want me to?
Can you log in here? Maybe we just want to test it.
Who, me?
Let me try one more time, Lata.
Okay, sure.
I don't have a password for SecureLink.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. Okay. Okay, my screen is paused. Okay, here we go. Okay, can everybody see? And can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is what we have right now. Let me show you the new layers that we have. What we did was we took a replica, not a replica, but we took an exact copy of your lines layer and we enabled Kogo on those layers here. You see these CAD construction lines and CAD sketch lines. We can have them whichever way you like, but these are our sort of temporary layers. Now here's your parcel fabric layers. Okay, this is not your SDE. This is a copy of your data. And just for that area, because we just wanted to quickly come up with this workflow. Let me refresh the screen. So here you see all of that line work, right? And we did set the basis of bearing. You can what I would like to say is, after understanding that you can actually finish up this loop, as long as you can finish up any loops of lines, you're okay with doing it in parcel fabric directly, right? And you can use these other layers as needed. That's something that you can do. At this moment, Cash, can you hear us?
But what you're offering up is that we can always draft in these sketch and construction layers and then relayer them to the layers that they are ideally supposed to be on, correct?
Yes, correct. And this is after finishing up, after coming up with the last parcel there, we actually went ahead and where is that? In the parcels, I'll just make it filled so that you can see. So we do have a parcel that got created. Actually, I mean, I know that everything's underneath is a parcel, so I'll just, that's the new parcel. Oh. Wait a second. Let me open up the plans. This may be it. I am not sure, but I'm just trying to open up the, maybe if I say last 7 days. Okay, that's basically, okay, we had to define a new parcel at some point of time. Let me quickly look at the parcel editor.
It really isn't a new parcel. It's like a new track map, or
Yeah.
are you saying that?
Mm-hmm. So I was kind of trying to show where we have taken these lines around and then, you know, created the new parcel. That's what I wanted to show. That's the RS. Okay, so the thing is, if you don't find it over there, and I thought we saved our edits. But yeah, we can always show that to you again, which is taking these lines and then making it one parcel in your data. So these are all of these lines that you see here are the construction lines. Let me actually go and change the symbology so that you can, you know, see.
So these construction lines / sketch lines, one of those, either or, is going to be what you want to add to the data.
Yeah, these are the ones.
You're basically sketching it out, and then once you get a completed project that you're happy with, then you start converting everything. We do the similar thing in AutoCAD, where we draft everything in the 0 layer and then shift everything to its appropriate layer as the ending step of the drafting process.
Right, and that's kind of you know what we're doing right now, because we didn't see in your workflows like you had a lot of like copy paste and everything.
Yeah, and that's just because CADME is very strict on how you do certain things, and if you kind of create your own style, if we would have used the build a tract map button, it forces you to do things in a certain order, but sometimes the way mapping is done nowadays, the people on the outside don't give you the locations that you need to start drafting in Cadme. So you have to create ways to drop those points to make it fit into the locations that you're working. You're not just free sketching everything as a closed traverse.
Right. We actually did set the basis of bearing, and then we located this point 107, something feet
Yeah.
away from this location, right? And after that, we used Kogo commands to complete this whole line work. And there were some other lines too which we deleted. Just like you did in Cadme, we just walked through that process. We did not need to delete them because these are like our temporary layers, but to
Yeah.
kind of do apples to apples, we made sure that we did that too. So in the end, we got these, and I was trying to see. And Cash, can you? I'm going to give you keyboard and mouse, and we'll see if you can show us in the plan directory for the new parcel that we created. And Lata, I got a message from her saying that it's in unjoined because we couldn't really like completely join it yet. There were no join points for us. So yeah.
And so Doug, are these considered like dummy lines then? Dummy lines, dummy points?
They're not necessarily dummy points as in that terminology. It takes a lot of time to get everything cleaned up at the end of the drafting, and you can and what happens a lot of time, you'll be drafting a center line, and then to see how something's fitting, you'll offset that center line, and then now you're still, it'll offset it in the same layer that you're offsetting from, and so you'll get right-of-way lines that are from center lines. But by drafting all of it into one layer, you know that the ending process of your workflow is going to be, okay, now I got to put all of my center lines on center line, all my right-of-way lines on right-of-way, and you just go through this process to make sure everything's right. My easement lines go on easement lines, they're the right color, they're the right line type, and so that's just part of the workflow. And if you draft in a zero layer, you know that at the end you have to do that. If you don't draft and you continually switching layers back and forth, then you're going to end up with some lines that are on the wrong layer, and so you have to go back and you have to turn off layers and turn on layers. So it's just kind of a method to make sure everything gets put in the right place.
Right.
Because inevitably what's going to happen is you're going to get a lot line that's on the right-of-way layer, and then it's when somebody turns something off, it's not going to turn off, and then it's not clean. So it's by drafting everything on one layer and moving everything specifically to its proper layer as the final step, it's just a clean way of drafting.
I think which is why these sketch lines and construction lines might work for you.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because it doesn't, with the ability to copy from, everything's going to be on the same layer, so you're just copying and you're getting all the lines in place and making sure you like everything. And once you like everything, then and everything's clean, then you can convert it to the parcel fabric, is what I assume the next step would be after everything's done. And then converting it to the parcel fabric is going to get things on the proper layers, but then you're going to have to go through and get other things cleaned up.
Right.
One of the longest step that Eswin and I were talking about is going back and annotating and putting street names in and putting lot numbers and APNs and all that kind of stuff. So when we were talking about that 40 hours of drafting for a subdivision like this, the line work might take 8 to 16 hours in Cadme, but going through and making sure you have a clean looking design that is aesthetically pleasing and everything's labeled properly, that takes a lot of time. And then confirming that your distances that you've drafted are within our tolerances for the map that we were drafting.
Yeah. I am trying to see what I'm trying to do right now is show you this other parcel that got created. Cash, do you have the keyboard and mouse? I think it may be in the other plan, I'm thinking, because I couldn't find it. Hello? Cash?
Cash is trying to get the mouse working, I think.
Oh, he is?
Bluetooth.
I've given him keyboard and mouse.
Meaning
So,
his maybe battery ran out on his mouse maybe. So
okay, yeah. And yeah, of course, he's on the East Coast and he was up until 1 too. So, trying to get this whole thing squared away. So, yeah, we just it took a while to, go through all of these steps and everything. It's not that these steps are because your demonstration was very helpful, but we try to see how we can translate that, where we can like sort of give you more, shortcuts and things like that. Okay, Cash should be back in a minute or so. Let me try to maybe stop editing and switch over to the other plan. Maybe I'm thinking maybe that's where I have.
it was the test one.
It was in test 1, Lata?
Correct. New parcel test one.
Okay, so that's the plan that needs to be opened. And
Eswin and I were also talking about the possibilities of using the line work that were given by the outside surveyors and trying to be able to argue for using that line work, especially when it fits fairly close to what is existing. In this case, that center line missing by 500ths, and then dropping this in place and rotating it and translating it and seeing how it fits and we're not surveying those interior lots, and as we've discussed before, we're not using monuments to get everything in place. So if we get something that's within our tolerance is what we're comfortable with, then there's a good possibility that we will just start using that. That will save us lots of time.
yeah, that's basically bringing in the CAD drawings from others, right?
Yeah. And then we'd have to rotate it and translate it to that center line, and then we'd match it up to the points on maybe the northwest corner and the southeast corner, and then would see how the other two corners fit, and and if it was within some kind of tolerance. If it's going to be something that's randomly out in the hills that is coming off somewhere else, we might have to draw the outside boundary. Once we draw the outside boundary, we could probably take that map, the interior lots and the street center lines and right of ways, and drop that in and see how it fits with what we've got as a drafted boundary. So we're trying to think what the new procedures that we're going to use for getting stuff in, which we're comfortable with the errors and making that work.
Yeah. We initially thought that would be a workflow too, because when we saw that you had like a CAD drawing, and we thought that you might like to bring the CAD drawing over, but I think that in the workflow that you showed us, it was like drafting, right?
Yeah, and there's a I think a lot of times when we're going to get digital files from people, they're not going to be of a quality that we want to use because we either don't trust the company that's doing it, or we don't know if their line work is representative or if it's just schematic. So there are going to be instances where we will have to confirm their line work, and if we spend hours and hours confirming their line work, then it's just as fast for us to draft it.
Yeah. Let me see if these. These are different locations. Okay. So let's do one thing in the sense that we can show you the workflow, what we have done. And I am just waiting to see if Cash can get back on. Hello, Cash.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, are
Yes.
you able to take
So I have a dead mouse, but I have my mouse, my trackpad.
okay, hopefully will work. Okay, we just want to see if we can get to the same parcel that we created yesterday, but I'm just not or we can recreate it. I don't know if we saved our edits or not. That's what I'm trying to remember. Maybe it's the other plan, or we can create a new plan and then copy our stuff in there, right?
Yeah, we could just
Those new
create.
lines. Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, I remember that plan, and that plan isn't showing up. So it may be that
Yeah, I think we didn't save on that
we
one.
didn't save it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So whenever you do construction, it minimizes, and I don't know why it happens. Okay, so this is kind of the thing that we were doing is we have to be careful in selection, but these lines having been already drafted in that layer, right? So we go and select, but we go and remove all the things that we don't want in there. We don't want these parcels, construction points, address points, and of these lines, that's good. There's one more line. Okay, so those lines are all gone. Now, ideally, what you would do is you would start off with the ones that join to the remaining parcels and start, pasting them in one after another. Would have been that ideally you would have gotten the boundary of the whole like subdivision. And this is what I think Cash was also, you were also saying yesterday, is that the first thing that needs to happen is the whole subdivision, the boundary of that. If it doesn't
Yeah.
already exist in there, right, you bring that in first, and then you get the outer like right of way lines, and then, or if you were doing the center line and the center line polygon's complete, you bring that in, and then the right of way lines, and then the lots. So in this
Yeah.
case, we have these parcels ready, and then think you can just
We would just copy, yeah,
copy those lines
and then we just paste
and
them.
paste them here. And it will ask you which layer you have to get it to. So we say boundary, and you have these other options over here. This is going
Yeah.
in for the parcels, but the line is going to be a boundary line. Okay. Anything else that I have to change here, Cash, before I say
No.
okay?
So the copy paste joins it?
Not yet.
It's gonna,
Not yet.
not yet. It's just gonna get the lines, the construction lines, into we're gonna begin the process of getting it to the fabric.
Okay.
So I don't understand why we just don't construct the parcels in the fabric.
Yeah, because a lot of the actually, that's a good question, Ted. A lot of the line work that they were drafting, you have to do a lot of splits, and you have to cut away lots of pieces of the line. So it's easier to construct and build the line work in Kogo, and then copy the lines into the fabric, and then build your parcels once you've
So
cleaned up
maybe
all
we,
your line work.
I mean, this doesn't happen now, but maybe in the next 6 months, we just completely revamp their workflow. Otherwise, what's the point of going to the fabric? You know?
This is we try to well, let's put it this way. You can do if they're able to do the polygon, they can do it in fabric. Okay, if they're able to finish up a polygon, they can do it directly in the fabric. But let's show you all the steps that we have, sort of taken to get here, right? So I'm going to say line 29, line 30 has missing Kogo attributes, and these can be filled in, I believe, or you can make sure that before you paste them in there that you get the Kogo in there. I think these were results of some offsets instead of where they were drafted, and that's why they're missing those Kogo attributes. But I'm going to say okay there, and you will notice that all of those are part of the parcel. I mean, they're not quite yet there in the sense that it's not joined yet. Okay,
Yeah.
in order to join, I would make sure that you have a point of, where you can join. So you'll start joining by the outer one. So if you digitize the outer, I mean, sorry, not digitize, but if you have drafted the outer polygon and then you went into the inner ones, then you're going to be okay with just doing it straight in the in here.
Yeah.
But if not, you have to stop and do it. Then I would say do these lines, all of these lines first, and then get the polygons in there. Ideal thing here would have been to get this outer one first, and then the right of way ones, and then you will get this one in there. Okay, so in essence, you can try to this is for facilitating, helping you out. As a matter of fact, one more method of doing this would be finish up all of your sketch lines, and then you can follow along and finish up your drafting inside your parcel fabric itself by just following along, because now that you have drafted everything accurately, you don't have to worry about the distances and everything, because there's a lot of planning involved on the part of whoever is doing this drafting process, because the vast majority of
Is
getting to
that
this.
is
Mhm.
that one line, the line on the left, that digitized line, is that line that's digitized the center line? So it's digitized center line?
This one here,
Yeah, is that just a manually digitized heads up digitized center line?
it is not heads up digitized, it is not. We'll show you. First
But
problem was to get to this point.
But is that digitized line the center line?
It's not
Yes.
digitized, it's drafted.
But it's in a
Kogo.
sketch. Yeah, it's Kogo.
Yeah,
It's-
it's Kogo. It's digitized. Is it?
No,
is that
that's not the
center
same
line?
thing. Don't call apples oranges.
Okay.
Is that digitized line the
Drafted.
center line?
Can we say
That is a
drafted?
drafted line, and it is center line.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
It's a drafted line, it's a center line, but it is not joined to your parcel fabric yet. It's because there is no like closing around and looping there. We have to say there's a lot of planning on Eswin's part when he was showing us the workflow, and of course Doug too, because there is a planning of, okay, we have a certain point that was given to us, how do we start off this whole drafting process? So to get to that point itself, he had like, I don't know, I think like there were at least 3 or 4 steps, I'm saying, right?
So that point, Esmond, is that some sort of what's the point? Some sort of control point, or
No, that's a centerline intersection.
do you guys get a center line intersection? So that to me seems to be where you do the connector line.
Yeah, but what Haritha was saying was that, let's say, before we decided where the center line is, we had to compare apples to apples. So we had to see, okay, well, the line work in CADME shows it to be this length. And the guy that prepared the map said that that length, that same exact line length is so much, it's a little bit longer. I think it was like 500ths longer.
500.
So
yeah.
we have to prorate that distance in so that we can be apples to apples. And once we prorated, that was that math equation that I did. Once we know now, once we're talking apples to apples, then we can say, okay, that's where we want to break it, and then we establish the basis of bearing, because now we have to be on a common rotation so we can talk, like
Yeah,
whatever
so
languages.
are you
All
guys
of
up
these
for?
survey methods are just trying to minimize the error at the end. If you don't do that 500ths, then you have this 500ths error on one side, and then 600 feet on the other side, that 500ths error becomes a little bit bigger. If you don't do the basis of bearing, then that 500ths error gets pushed out, depending on that angle difference, that deflection angle, out to the other side, and then you could get multiple feet difference on the other side. So you
Man, it's
have
amazing
these
the way
checks
you
and
guys,
balances.
the way you guys talk. It's so GIS centric.
It's GIS centered. We've been surveying for 250 years, and it's GIS centered.
Yeah. But so in some ways, we're going to be able to modify and tweak your workflow in the coming year, right?
I would
Yeah, for
agree.
sure.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, because I
Okay.
figured that Rita was gonna look at this and say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna make it easier for you guys," and that's we're that's where we're at.
Okay. This is good. You guys get to learn about Kogo. This is the regular Kogo. This is the
Yeah.
Kogo that the county uses. So you guys will get to play with it. The cool thing about Cadastral that no one else gets to do, for the most part, is you guys get to potentially use every tool in ArcMap when it comes to editing. You're going to have topology tools, you have feature editing tools, you have Kogo tools that are standard Kogo tools, you have partial fabric Kogo tools. You guys will literally get the most overall experience throughout ArcMap compared to any other group. I'm just
Yeah.
little spiel.
The advanced
That's true.
editing is the first time we touched upon for any group. I mean, we didn't really show them yet, but we want to show you right now how we got to where we got to on that map
Okay.
there. Okay. So
Perfect.
just take a look. This is our video. At the risk of we could go and repeat the whole thing, but since we've already taken the video and we might actually run a little bit fast, or I'll skip through because there were places where we were trying to figure out things a little bit. So we'll probably explain. And I've turned the voice off on that. Let me make sure that, okay, I know I'll have to make this full screen.
So this video is 1 hour and 43 minutes.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I'll skip through fast, right?
No,
So we're
but
here.
you're going to give us this video, right?
No, not necessarily. We'll make a cleaner video for you. This is our
Yeah.
hits and misses in there. So we don't want to give you this one. We'll give you
Don't like
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
make a cleaner video for you, but we want
Yeah.
to show you that these are the okay. So let's start off at the very beginning. I know, did we start off there or not? So we tried to it could have been that we stopped at some point and we came back here. Okay, we were trying to do the historic and all of that. We tried it before that, and we changed the symbols a little bit so that we can see things. But the first thing we tried to do was we somehow came up to this break point. Before that also, I may have another video how we came up to the break point, but right now at least we have this one, right? I think we may have even tested our basis of bearing over and over again. I'm going to go a little bit faster. This is a traverse starting from that point.
So I don't know if you guys saw that, but basically they went in and they clicked the start point in that Kogo Traverse tool and then selected the basis of bearing based on that.
Yeah, and we had to set the units.
Yeah, quadrant bearing, and then
Yeah.
degrees minutes second.
Yeah,
And
if
left
you're
to be
doing
quadrant.
Kogo, this is required.
Yeah. Ground to grid correction check.
So we're starting a traverse, and this is Kogo. This is not parcel fabric or anything. It's just Kogo. So you enter the direction and distance, and then the distance, the angle first, and then the quadrant.
Yeah.
And then the curve. I think this is where I just figured out it. I'll just move a little bit forward. It's a tangent curve. I think I redid this because I forgot saving my, and that's why I redid it, because I forgot saving my traverse. So the next time I save the traverse so that we can bring it in again real quickly. Actually, we have all those traverses saved. So if we needed to repeat the work, it's just easy to.
And it's cool to save the Kogo this way, as in Doug. This is actually transferable to the Pro Fabric. You can now bring in the traverses that you saved from ArcMap. But that was kind of the standard practice we had at the county, where everybody just saved out their traverses for everything. We'll always have it as a backup. And this is also what you do is in the regular Kogo traverse would be if you worked until 4 o'clock and you were leaving at 4:15 and you weren't going to finish the traverse. What you have to do is you have to save out your traverse and then reload it the next day so you can continue on the process. That's what you would do with the regular Kogo.
Right.
The fabric's a little bit different.
Make a note, it was an open traverse just like you had done because we didn't have an ending point. Okay. Okay. This is where we went back and we looked at it and none of the Kogo attributes were filled. So we had to go fix those layers. Bottom line, we had to fix those layers. So we went and we looked at, okay, what's happening with why those fields were not getting filled, and we did a little bit of work on that. And then we fixed those layers again. And then
So what was the problem? Did you guys not use the add Kogo fields command from catalog?
So we actually did a replica of your parcel lines for those layers.
You know what the problem is the direction and distance are text, and in parcel fabric they're integer, I think.
No, I don't know. At the end, I think we got it, but I'd like to say we made a copy of that, and then we dropped those fields and re-added those fields as Kogo fields, and then it started working. So that was.
There's a command in our catalog that allows you to add Kogo fields.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
the preferred way when you add them, is to use that tool, unless you can code it. But
Right. So at this point, I think we were done with that. Let me show you the next thing that we did was parallel offset. Yeah, we went and we selected that. We had to do an offset, like a copy. So on the other side, that was my PowerPoint in which I was looking at each step there and referring. And what was the next step was certainly.
it's fascinating. So you guys go in and select the center line, and then do an offset of the center line to get the
Yeah.
front lot line.
Yeah, the copy parallel.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You do a copy parallel, and then
Let me stop. Hold the mouse here. Look at that. Is that the copy parallel command allows you to do it like a copy, like a parallel, but you can choose which layer it goes into. So some of the steps that I saw Eswin do were moving it from one layer, or actually copying it to one layer and then deleting it again because he didn't want it in another layer, in that layer, but in another layer. So there's a little bit of that work that gets saved over here. I mean, that you can.
Cadme didn't allow you to copy from a layer to a different layer. It only allowed you to copy from center line to center line and right away to right away. So you had to copy, then you had to oops it, and then it made a copy of the center line and then another line underneath it. It's tedious at best.
Right. So
But being able to copy parallel to a different layers is good stuff.
yeah. So but here's the thing, right? This copy parallel and all these are easier to work with when you're using your sketch layers instead of in the parcel fabric layers, I would say.
Mhm.
Cash, correct me if I'm wrong. That's not just possible in this world of ArcMap and this, right? Parcel fabric. Hello, Cash? I think he agrees.
As long as we're not going to run into any problems of drafting in the construction layer and then moving to the fabric, then we don't have a problem with that. It's just if there's going to be a problem doing all our construction drafting and then having to spend time doing cleanup to get it into the parcel fabric, that's where if we have to double the work, then we're going to have to find a different workaround.
Yeah, you may have to, test this out, right? And then check
Mhm.
the work. That's what you should do. And we were checking our, whenever we did a traverse, we were always keeping on checking what's our error of closure. And I think at least we thought that it looked okay. And we'll show you in a couple of minutes. And I don't know why that's kind of like repeating there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we, I think my video kind of got, seems
Yeah,
like it.
it's like you've got a little animation built into your video.
Okay, so I think what I did next was this construct points, and I needn't have done this command. I should have done the advanced editing, and I'll show you it shows up next. What we're trying to do here is to put a point there at the 19.7 feet. Okay, instead of this step was bad in the sense that there's a more efficient way to do it. What we did was the construct points. And in construct points, you could take that and create that, and we contemplated that process, but that won't give you along the line, I would say. So that's why we had to use the construct points, or we could have used the other tool that's available, and we'll show that to you in a minute. It's almost like your break line. You created a break line in your process. In ours, we're just trying to put a point at that 19.7 feet. Okay.
So it's almost like a proportion.
Right. Okay, it's very slow because I was talking there, but I'll move ahead. Those points got created, then we split up that line, we deleted the remaining stuff. That's what it meant. Okay, so given that was the exact steps that you had done too, and if let me.
So you go in and you do an offset or a copy parallel of the center line. You get the front lines of the parcels, but then you construct the points, and then you go in, you delete a bunch of the front lines.
The dirty lines, yeah, the lines that you don't want to keep to form polygons. You just want to go and split those and delete those, just like they did in CADME, to get rid of those lines and then build the polygons.
And this is all in order to plan the traverse.
This is what you guys have been doing for the last 20 years?
So here's our friend copy parallel again from that center line.
I've been doing this since 79, Ted.
Oof.
79, yeah. Okay, dude. They had you working early.
Let's all just walk softly right about now, right? Just senior one on the phone call might get offended.
Maybe the guy who doesn't like the word digitize.
You want to start with the digitize. Yes, the other day it was something different. It just little things. It's the little things that set old people off, right?
Yeah.
So we got that.
Yes, they
in-
add up.
Go ahead, sorry.
No,
So
we're
what?
just-
I'm scrambling all over the place, but in reality, we were just trying to think about what's the best way to do it, sort of. But we thought we'll just follow your workflow at the moment there inside ArcMap. So now again, one more copy parallel there, right? And
Because our ultimate end goal was to get to where we can build the polygons and join them to the fabric as accurately as you have been drafting them. Because that's very important to you guys. So we want to make sure that the integrity of the data remains the same.
so here's where we came up with that new tool. Yeah, anytime you wanted to change something, you could easily change the subtype, and this is how we change the type there. But this is what tool was that?
It's like the intersect tool.
Yeah, I think we looked at the intersect tool.
No, are they going to get to use the? There's two tools I've never ever used. I've seen Ezra do demos on it, but there's the one with the circle and the line, and then there's the other one with the two circles. Do they get to use those tools?
There, the line intersection tool. The
Yeah,
advanced-
I know that's a line intersection, but there's another one that's a circle with a radius that uses an intersect, and then there's another one that's got two circles with two intersects that constructs the line.
I guess that's
Yes,
like
I
a
have
tangent.
used both.
When you
That's
see
probably
the
like a
tools, you're
tangent.
like, wow, those
Yeah.
are a pretty intricate workflow. I've never seen them in production, but I've seen them on video being used.
Yeah, I've actually used them. So
Okay.
I'll
So
give
those are those are the line. We did a line intersection, so that's the one of the tools that you'd be using quite a bit if you were drawing these offsets and all.
Mhm.
Okay, and then you get rid of those two lines there, and then yeah, let me move a little bit. So we are now, about to do that COGO again, right? We choose the start point, end point.
And the end point would be the end point of that line that you just deleted. You'd start at that corner and then
Mhm.
COGO from there.
Yeah.
And this is a closed one though. So in the sense that we have the start and end points determined there, right? So then you start giving in the distances, directions, and let me skip through
The
the
reality is you can take this demo and that you're going to create again and share it with everybody because this is training them on COGO.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could do that. We don't want floating heads in the demo, so yeah. So that's why we're going to remake it.
Hmm.
It's Teams. Teams does this. Whoever is controlling the screen gets to. So okay, just let me show you one thing. Here's the error for that.
Yeah. It's a low. I mean, I
Oh,
don't
okay.
know how you guys. It's a low error, but
That's good because we did the arctangent of that angle, and at 10 feet is about 200s, and you guys are coming up at 2700s. Or actually, the misclosure is 0.016. So that's right.
cool.
That's about what we
Okay.
calculated.
Nice.
Okay, we just want to make sure that this does still comply with your accuracy requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the concern was this, right? You could to do all of this in Parcel Fabric, it's not that easy. And I was saving all my traverses, by the way, most of it. Normally, when you digitize the last lot line, and there also you have a traverse, so that's interesting. But you really need to make sure that everything is like accurate there. I get why you're using the traverses, even for drawing lines between known points. the accuracy requirements. So
The reason that we put those in as a traverse in between those two known points instead of just connecting those is we wanted that metadata to stay in there, that when someone clicked on that line, that the bearing and distance on that line in CADME would be the same as the bearing and distance you would see on the map. So that's the only reason we do that. So if that data is not going to be retained in that line as how we originally drafted before it gets adjusted, then there's no need for us to not just draw the point. If we're going to have to hand enter in the metadata that shows the bearing and distance that's on the map, then that's going to be a different procedure that we're going to have to add.
right, yeah. So you have a metadata that comes along with the traverse that.
Yeah, so the traverse in CADME retains the bearing and distance that you plugged in, and then has the actual bearing and distance from after it's adjusted by compass rule adjustment,
Right.
or rotate, translate, and scale, or however it does it.
So we deleted those few lines, construction lines there, right? Of course, we'll have to refresh this. This comes up when you delete things and you have the attribute table open. Then you have a copy parallel from the right-of-way line again. I think this time it's for the right-of-way line, sorry, from the center line.
So it seems to me that we should turn off the attribute rule once you finish the edit. The attribute rule pops up, attribute table.
Yeah, we can actually turn off that. Yeah. That way it'll go faster for them. And then they can do the attribution towards the end.
Yeah, because then you just keep, because at this point it looks like based on statistics on you is 99.9% of the time you go ahead and just close it.
Right. So we're using an extend command here, just like you have in CAD. So we just wanted to make sure that when it extends, is it the same as the break? Because when you did the offset, I think you could create a breakpoint. But in our case, when we did the offset, it didn't really intersect that line down there, or it didn't even extend to that line. So there was a little bit of like we actually drew another line there, and then we decided to extend because the extend command wasn't working on just the parcel fabric parcel line. So I had to do that. And there it extended. Okay. So I had to digitize one more line down there really for that to work. Not digitized, but made a copy from the parcel fabric parcels. So that location there at the end of it is our breakpoint for the right of way. I didn't really need to do that line intersection, but just created a point at the end of it. So when it got extended, it created a little vertex there, and then it moved to the end. It extended it to the end in the same direction. And there's our breakpoint, but not really in the parcel fabric, but it's just a temporary one that we created here. And should in case you copy the other layer, then we wanted to make sure that this was also split up, this line down here. And I think that line gets deleted, and then you have a traverse again. Let me get to that point. Yeah. Time to start a traverse from that point to the other point on the top, I think. There. And we give in the all of the directions and distances, and then you want to, let me see. Yeah, there is a 0.881. So that's the closure.
Harita,
Mhm.
quick question.
Yeah.
So let's say once you guys drafted all the lines,
Mhm.
was the metadata still attached to that new line work that you guys created? The record metadata?
The one that moved to the parcel
Yeah.
fabric?
Yeah, like we say whatever this bearings and distances that you guys used to record this, was that data attached to the line so that it was easier for you guys to annotate afterwards?
Yeah, those distances came in, and we can show that you even on the sketch lines, the distance attribute was getting filled because we made a copy of the data.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can show
Rita,
that.
is it easy to just bring in from the saved traverse we did? So we
You
can
could,
load it?
but the way it's being, the way we are kind of doing it, we don't have a closed traverse. Closed traverses, yes, it's easy to do that. But when you don't have that, we want to construct these lines separately and then bring them in. I think that's probably the better way right now. So I think I was just looking for a tool to, yeah, we started doing this tool here to create points at the end of a line. Let me show this to you. You can create a point at the end of a line, or you can use not the line. So this line here, right? This is where you create the lot breakpoints, right? So for
Yes.
this one,
Yes.
we started creating the points, but then we realized there is one more tool that you can use, which we will show you after this. Like I'll probably skip to that section directly. We tried, you can create a point at the end of a line by specifying the direction and distance. So we say start from here, from this point, and then give a distance and direction for that. And then it creates a point. Like you can give the bearing and distance and it'll create a point from relative to that where it is. But that's going to be 2 steps for you. But instead, if we just took the line, and I'll show that step to you. We thought this is like too many steps. And we also checked this line, by the way, here. That little line that got, yeah, we checked that happens to be 1.59 something, 1.596 something in the data, because that's a check that you also performed. And then the lines in the back there, right? So we took this and we used this one, split. Okay. And then I could say at what distance. And then it automatically splits there. So the split is the tool that I wanted to show you. And we looked at that line's length, the last segment. I think that happened to be, oh wait, sorry. That happened to be 60.
So did you guys ever look at the proportion?
We didn't do proportion, we did split.
Yeah, but you could do proportion too.
But they were not all the same. They were different. One was 46, the other one was 43. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So proportion for you guys would be like if I need to break a line up into equal areas of 45, 45, 45, 45, you can proportion it out.
Yep.
And it's a Kogo tool.
Yeah, we have that in Cadme too, and it's rare when we have those sort of distances.
Yeah, they're not all equal. And then we looked at every line length after we specified that. C1 was 45.0. There's a digits after decimal discrepancy. The last segment, I don't know, we went back to the first one again when we to check and make sure that it was correct. It was 43, so it was 42.999, you know.
And so they can also go in and just select a line and do an inverse as well. And that would try to get the COGO.
Right, so this line, the last line happened to be 62.09. I think it was kind of closely matching to what you had.
Yes, it was the line that we were saying, we're gonna let all the error fall on the south end of
Right.
the subdivision.
Yeah.
And I guess we were hoping that the data was tighter, and it wasn't, because on the south end, it seems like the boundary for that map is probably about 4/10 longer than we expected. So,
Mhm.
I mean, there's different ways to draft it. So I guess once you guys show us one thing, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Cash puts a AutoCAD drawing into this new system. So because in some areas like this map, it was probably a better idea to bring in fresh AutoCAD drawing and then extend the outside boundaries to the new.
Yeah, because this is a perfect square. It's the
Yeah.
weird looking shaped ones that the CAD is going to be more difficult to snap it in. But for something like this, for a square like this, is really super easy to just bring it in through CAD. It should be. It should be super easy.
Yeah, let me this is done. So we were doing that cut back, right? That's what this is. The same things again, right? I'm going to kind of move a little bit faster here. So this is for the cut back. Again, a traverse there for the cut back, I believe. And there we go. Cleaned
And
up that area.
when you're in the traverse tool and you accidentally put the wrong course in, you can move your courses around within the traverse tool. But those arrows to the right allow you to move them around. Like, oops, I put the wrong, direction distance in. You need to move it over here.
Yeah, we didn't make any mistakes, so we didn't do that. But yeah, this is
That's probably a tool that Ted uses a lot of the time, but the rest of us don't need it.
so
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a Kogo person. I just train people on Kogo.
Does that fall into the category of blind leading the blind? Is that how that works?
No, usually it's more involved than that.
okay. So we were looking for any misclosures there.
Looks good, Haritha.
Okay, so I will just move ahead and we'll show you the last step of this was, like we were saying, if we did the outer one, and maybe you can try that today, you do the outer one, or I'll ask Cash if he can show bringing in the CAD drawing. Which one would you prefer? Because again, I think after this, we still have a post training for Cadastral. This was supposed to be our advanced QC one, and I also wanted to resolve an issue regarding topology today, so that we can give you an idea about the topology, also editing the topology. You have seen how to do the data reviewer, but let me actually go to the last portion, wrap this up, right? We had a little bit of like trying to figure out which plan should we put it in and all that. So that's why you have a lot of like back and forth going on. But finally, you do the paste there, and that's what we showed you just now. And once you paste them in there, you can preserve. Well, that option I didn't check on, but you have the tolerance there to extend and trim lines within and those kind of things, those options. And choosing the right layer, right line type and all that. once you finish it though, you see there were a couple of them that were missing, it said, so we may have to go back and put in the coordinates for those, or we'll make sure that before any line gets pasted in there that all the COGO attributes are already filled in. You can always calculate COGO on a line that's been like offset and generated that way, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so this is it. And we tried to join. I believe our join wouldn't work because there isn't anything to join. So that's why. But if we had started on the outer boundary and then started building it inwards, then it would have, I think. Okay. So that's that's our effort with this. I'm going to stop that video right now, go back to this one here.
Has the DXF out line work procedure been to get it to AutoCAD? Has that been?
We did not do a video on that one, but I think, or Cash. Hello?
So yeah, we can do I can do a video for that one for you guys.
That'd be
Perfect.
thinking about how
Yeah, sure.
if we're playing inside a box like this, if we could DXF out the outside boundary of that box and then toss it into CAD and see how the CAD drawing relates to that drawing outside of the GIS world, and then maybe do some manipulation to their data before we bring it in. That might be an interesting process to get that line work into GIS faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It would help save some time for sure.
Thanks, Cash.
I thought
sure.
you had a video already, Cash, on
Not on the CAD drawing, on the DWG.
Okay.
Not yet. But I'll make
Okay.
one today.
Okay. We have some items to discuss before we move on to the next, and we'll see. I'm trying to log in. It's kind of like 1FRH. I want to show you topology, what's going on. And also we noticed that, okay, I had a couple of questions when I was noticing
Rita,
your work.
close this and just again click on the map too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. I think what you're saying. Just 1 second. But yeah, we have the topology that we really needed to look at. And that's what we were hoping for. Let me show you. I think I'm now back in. Okay. Okay. So yeah, when we brought in things again, this is how, they look like, right? The one thing we were kind of puzzled was, okay, what about the historic parcels? There is no parcel over here. This one's a parcel. This one's a parcel. This isn't a parcel here in between. Okay, this line that you made it historic. We are not able to make this alone historic. Okay, the way this works out with making historic parcels, and I'll show you, is you can give a, I don't know, I'll just go click somewhere else and show you another example instead of this area. So we go here. We take this parcel and then we can say historic. Immediately you will notice that these things happen around this. And if I were to go and identify that parcel, which now is historic. It's got lines. Oops, sorry. And it's historical too. Okay, so the lines along with it turn historical. There's no way for us to individually go to the lines and make them historical. But here's what we can do. We can, on your MXDs, we can say, we can bring in the lines again. And this is just our, local copy of the data, but we can, you have the lot info line, which is actually like your historical. It's not being pushed there. It's still in the parcel fabric. And lines. And we go properties. We go query builder. Historical equals 1. And then you will find only those, but when we can go to symbology, can make it a certain specific symbol. Or any symbol you like. Move it maybe right below. So that's what we can do on your system. Make a definition query, and then going forward, anytime you make any parcel into historic, then automatically this should happen. Like for example, if I just go here, take this parcel, and then make it historic, then you will see the lines also showing up. There is a hatching on the polygon itself, but you will also see those lines coming up that way. Okay. So any questions on that?
No.
Okay. What I would like to show you now is that the thing that we were running, I think my two questions were, when you digitized those in CADME, those center lines, did it automatically copy it also to the center line layer, or did you have to digitize the street center line separately? Because in your data, you have the street center line over here, right? Which is a different layer than the polygon that you were having there.
No. Once we started drafting on the centerline layer, it would only give you a choice. Do you want to make this centerline public? Do you want to make it private? Or do you want to make it like an abandoned? So we always use public or private, and it can only be within, and it automatically goes into the centerline layer.
It automatically goes into centerline layer.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's say you're only able to edit items from the centerline layer within that like I call it an interface almost, because it's like we're really pushed to only edit items within the centerline layers. Let's say, like I can only annotate centerline if I'm within the centerline layer.
So just to switch and work in the parcels layer, you have to close out the centerline layer, open up the parcels layer, and then you can work in the parcels layer. So it wasn't convenient.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the old Cadme world, edit
Cadme
feature,
world, yeah.
edit feature center line. Now I got to edit feature parking lot.
Really forced you to specifically work on a specific item.
Yeah.
Right.
That
Now
goes
you
away.
don't, now that's gone, but here's the thing. What I'm trying to figure out is how is the center line created? Because we saw this automatically getting generated, I believe, in the sense, like right now, when we created these sketch lines, if I don't have those sketch lines, I have nothing over here. Okay. But you do have, there's two things going on over here. If I go here, this is your, and I'm going to identify this for you here. There's a street or avenue center line. There are lines over there, and those lines are calling it the right-of-way center line. Those belong to the parcel fabric. So there's two things going on. So we need to make sure that you also get the street center line automatically created, because you have this line work right now, the sketch line work, right, with the Kogo information and everything. You can now, do a copy, and then you can do a paste. And when it asks you which layer, you can go and choose your street center line. And of course, you can give the street name there. I know this has to match your list of street names and all that. But I think in your process, you did not assign it at that point of time, but it's something that you can, always do later. So now you have a street center line there. Okay. And when your polygon is done, you move it to the parcel fabric, and then you have that in that too, the right-of-way center line layer. Okay. So what I was noticing was the tick marks also got created similarly when you were doing this. And I don't know if you do plan to do that or not. What I mean is here, and that's also then segues into my question on topology. Okay. So wherever we were having any kind of like a curve coming in, you would have these tick marks, right? And these were automatically generated for you. These little, I will probably make those points a little bit smaller or change the color.
I guess they were almost like a graphic representation of the ECs and BCs in CADME, just so that you can see, oh, there's a curve, or even if it was a real flat, giant curve, and if you saw a tick mark, oh, that's a curve. But I'm not sure if in the new environment, tick marks are really a requirement. And that's, like I said, that was more of the old environment than something that we want.
Right. If there, I mean, it's a question for you. I mean, you will have these, you have a, separate, what do you call, task order, I think, for your mapping purposes. In your mapping purposes, if they identified that these tick marks are still necessary, I mean, if you identified or if your consultant did, then they will ask you to generate them at the curves, right? So it's something to think about. Do you need these automatically generated still, or you don't need to?
We kind of discussed that with them, and they kind of like the idea. When you have a very flat or very large radius curve, and it's right next to a long line, it's hard to see where the curve starts and the tangent meet. So, but in a tight curve, it's not necessary, but it does give you a starting point and give you a relationship to that. If you're and if it's really hard to tell, like a 3,000 foot radius curve, where you might not even be able to tell that it's a curve and it's a short distance, having those there is a good idea. They're not always ideal because they do distract.
Yeah, I see this, for example, you would have thought that this is a straight line. If you put the tick marks on this line here, you know that there are two curves there.
Yeah, especially on if it's a little tiny piece of reverse curve, there's sometimes it just gets missed, but that clearly identifies it as what direction you are headed to the radius also.
Right. So you need a way to get these tick marks in there, and there is a way. It's not going to be well, you can manually create them, but we don't like you to create them manually. What you can do is Whenever your line work is complete, you can select the lines that have gotten the curve on it, the Kogo, and then based on that you can create it. And so, for example, I don't know if this would be a good example, but somewhere far away, but not in this view, but everything makes its way to the parcel fabric ultimately, right? So you can look at the parcel fabric lines after this is in there and then automatically generate the start and end points. I will take a look and see how we can maybe automate at the end. Now, question for you would be, it's as easy as, let me show this to you, but I guess it's not. Let me tell you, there's a couple of complexities I notice. One thing is your street tick mark is a line. It's not a point, right? If it were a point, you could just symbolize it in a certain way. But right now it's like a line that you're just drawing a short line, about a 5 foot line. Okay.
Yeah, the program automatically draws it, and it has probably some determined length.
Right. It's 5 foot. I notice here. All of them are 5 foot. 4.99. Right.
And as you zoom in closer, they do shrink. They don't stay 5 feet. So it's respective to how close you are to zoomed in.
Yeah,
at least in Cadme they were.
Yeah. I mean, that's in this world, it's your display. Your, like right now we have set a scale of 2400 on this, but we can go and change it, and that way the symbology becomes a little bit different. But what I'm trying to say is, is this something that the other task order, they are looking at automating because it's cartographic, or is this something that we need to do in editing? If we need to do in editing, this is not just one point feature class. It's more of it's at the curves. That's where this is happening. It's not happening all over the place, right? It's only happening where you have a curve in your parcel fabric. And it's also, I'm wondering the directionality of the line. For example, if I were to go here, how would that tick mark be generated for this little curve here, right? It would probably be generated from here. So, and I want to show, sort of draw this manually so that we can think of a way to see how it goes automatically. Let me see, tick mark.
Okay, we're talking about tick marks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was talking to my bosses, but
So here is the starting point of the tick mark. Am I correct?
yeah, should be.
Or
Yes, that's correct.
or I can go and check the other guys. And I would like to do that just because they were generated automatically in Cadme. I don't know what would be the start and the end point. So let's take a look at this guy. Double click that. So your start point was the line itself, and the end point is there. And it's really interesting to see this. The way this is going is, okay, there's a start point here. Let's see this one. They are oriented also in a certain specific way. Makes me wonder.
They're pointing to the radius point, Harita.
They're pointing to the radius point.
Yes.
Okay.
So every tick is pointing towards the radius point.
Okay. Cash, is there something in the LGIM model for this kind of like the tick marks, or there isn't?
I'm not really familiar with the tick marks so much, but I can look into that. Yeah.
It seems like you do have radius, and you have all that stuff in Fabric.
Right.
You would just use, wouldn't you just use the points or the line points or whatever for the beginning curve, end curve? I mean, the points go a little further. They don't just do the points. Really track everything that's a 2-point. So you got a 2-point straight line, or you got a 2-point curve, but it's at least a 2-point. And so you get the point on either side for the straight lines, but for the curves, you actually get the points for the beginning curve and end curve by
Right.
default. And then you also have radii in the fabric, which is, to me, that's a survey thing. I'm sure that's confusing to me the way fabric does all that. But
Yeah, let me check if there is something on these points itself. I'm almost wondering. Yes, it's good to see the tick marks, but the way to like replicate this is what I'm trying to see. You
yeah, what
can
we need to
draw
do
them.
is this comes back to that type field in the point data set
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
says, is that beginning curve or end curve?
Yeah.
There isn't much information on the points. I will show you. If I were to go to the parcel fabric, there's line points and then there is points, right? If I go to the properties of the points, symbology, categories, and then we say type, add all values. There we go. We have these values there. You have central point, end point, POB, but hey, there's none of them there. Why?
Well, that's because that field's blank, right? Remember we talked about that? The field's blank, and we need to figure out what's what so it can be calculated. But
Let's
this comes
me
back
actually,
to,
yeah.
as Doug brought up, what's your terminology? Remember that was the layer that's the problem with that one topology. If that
Yeah, let me actually. Sorry, go ahead.
If that type field is filled out, then the topology works. If that type field is not filled out, then all the fabric topology needs to be removed. So what's the terminology that you guys use, Esmond? PB, place of bearing, whatever?
BC and EC.
BC and EC.
That's right. You said BC and EC. So it seems to me that can we tweak that? Can we tweak that domain? This would be a database change to tweak the domain to say BC, begin curve, end curve.
Yeah.
Instead of doing central point, I mean, we could probably leave central point in there, but PB, POB, and whatever the other one was to replace that with BC and EC.
Yeah, and the center point is not on a regular basis any concern of ours. It's where that curve begins and where that curve ends are the interesting points. The center of the curve is not something that we regularly call out or need to know. That would be, if we were looking for something like that, we would just go the middle of that. But it's not something it's not something we need to call out.
No, yeah, I think it just happens automatically as part of the COGO process where it needs a beginning point, a radius point, and an end point to calc a curve. So you automatically get the radius point. Not that you want it, it happens because of the software.
So is there a way right now, Haritha, to be able to calculate the tick mark to be equal? Once we get the naming convention down for PC and EC, is there a way to look at the tick marks to say which tick mark is end? Do we get that nailed down yet? I guess that's what you're trying to figure out, because there's basically a 3-number designation for tick marks, and we need to figure out does the 1 equal EC or does the 1 equal BC?
Yeah, let me show this to you, because like so far I was showing you in the other a copy of your data that localized. We just took a copy just for that area. But
so this is kind of related to that. So is there what I'm hearing from Esmond and Doug is they would like to have the domain changed from POB and whatever the other one was to EC and BC. Can we do that? Can we have that change?
Domain.
Yeah, that would be a domain change on the subtype. It would be a subtype change.
Okay, let me just go to an area where these all of this tick marks may be, some of them at least. I'm pretty sure there's a curve over here. We should look at that. And Well, not maybe. Not yet. Not these, I think.
I'd find a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, it's the best example.
Are these guys going to get to use the cul-de-sac tool?
No,
No, that's another tool that I've always wanted to use, but
they're. I mean, let's see here.
there's one
Which
right there.
cul-de-sac- You
There's the far right. Go to the far right because you got a good tangent curve in there, and
Oh, sorry. Okay.
one more over. I mean that works. That works.
Which one
That
here?
right there. Right there in the center. Right there. Yep. Right there. I think that's a good example.
Okay. So here's an example where you have all of these, right? And those points were a little bit tiny, but I could make the scale a little bit higher. And you can see those points, but I want to make sure that we have the tick marks. For whatever reason, they don't have any tick marks here.
That's weird. Are they small or?
Could be. Let me see.
So for Doug and Esmond, basically we have a type field that's all null for the points, and because it's null, it's causing problems with topology.
Right. We need to somehow fill it up on those. Okay, I've just drawn.
And it's no, because the program as it exists right now is just creating these lines, and then in the new environment it doesn't like it, right? They're saying there's empty fields.
Well, no.
See, we talked about this with Patrick, and we talked about the merits of having them and not having them. And the discussion that we had with Patrick was that where there weren't any, there were going to be some created. So this might be a question for Somas when we have that conversation with them, that where they weren't there, where they were deleted for whatever reason, that Somas was going to put them back in. So, you know, because I would go through at times and get rid of them when you're in a situation where you don't need them.
Yeah, but see, in this case, these points that you see in front of you essentially are your tick marks.
Oh, okay.
Like that's the beginning curve and the end curve, but but they're not calculated. So if you connect to the point, you don't see a type value for that. We don't know if that's the BC or the EC because there's no type calculation. So we need to figure out, once we get a type field calculated, then we can use the topology with all these fabric layers. But there's a problem with that until we get that type field calculated.
Yeah,
so basically the tick marks go away. We don't need tick marks anymore because we got these points.
You could represent, let me go to an area where you have a tick mark and this point is definitely there, right? And let me
see the tick marks, like I said, were just a visual representation.
Right. And they're here, right?
The difficult part with a BC and an EC.
Yeah. Let's take a look at, you know, what I would like to do is maybe see if we can represent these lines, that I mean these parcel fabric points with that notion. And if the data is there, you can make this point so that it kind of gets that way. Or let me show you. This is the points for the parcel fabric, right? Let me add it in again, just like we did the lines, right? Just go to the database connections. It's taking a minute. Parcel fabric.
To the right. Oh, you're in cadastral reference.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Cadastral. Yeah.
One more to the right.
Okay, this is the one. These, I'm going to bring in the line points and the points. just to be sure we don't miss anything there. Okay. And I believe the line points, you don't have anything there, right? And now everything shows up with that brown color because it's neither of these types. Okay. So let's assume,
So we would want to basically take, I assume POV would be BC and endpoint would be EC. And CP would be CP.
Center point. But
Yeah.
BCs and ECs, if you're going into a line and you hit a BC and an EC and then you come from the other direction, the other one becomes the BC and this one becomes the EC. So the whole BC EC thing, that seems kind of silly to me.
So everything's a BC.
Everything is a BC depending on which direction you're coming from, or everything's just an EC.
Yeah.
So if we just want to change everything to BC, that's fine too.
Yeah, so we could literally calc everything in the tech field then to POV.
When we have a connection with a straight line going into a curve, would be all of those points can become a BC. And then we don't have a 1, 2, and a 3, because 2 is not necessarily an item, because looking at this curve here, from the BC to where it ends, there is a middle of that curve, but that middle of the curve is not really important because it does nothing to do with any of this geometry here. We have a BC, then we have a property line, then we have another curve, and then we have an endpoint. So the middle of that curve is irrelevant to everything. The property line is the important line that's coming off that curve.
Yeah. So so in this case, Harita, can we redo the type to somehow have BC and EC in there instead of, I'm assuming endpoint is EC and POV place of bearing would be BC?
oh, you mean you want to change the what it says? I think it's easy, right? Lata? It's just going in there and changing your description on your subtype.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it sounds like what Doug's saying is we could literally go and calc everything to BC. Be right back.
Yeah.
So whenever we're dealing with a curve, we could just call it it doesn't even have to be a BC and EC. It can be a
Curve. Yeah,
C.
it can.
Yeah, C or a PC or point of curvature.
Yeah, the thing that I was trying to do was see if we can symbolize this in such a way that these points here, so that you don't have to you would. So this is what we can do. These points here can be simply represented as I mean, we probably wouldn't do this for everything, but we'll do it for the ones that really are only showing up there. Once you know which one is BC and EC and all that, right? You can use a symbol that on your points, and this doesn't, you can show those points also, but you can also show them like, let me see.
It's relationship. It's relationship to the center point of the arc, and put some kind of symbol on it pointing towards the center of the arc, and then just make that dynamic as you zoom in, zoom out.
Right. What happens here is a rotation, and that rotation, even though that I'm just trying to see. Oh, you don't have the rotation.
There shouldn't be any rotation on any of those tick marks. They should be pointing directly at the center of the circle.
Yeah, but what I was trying to do was, instead of using those tick marks, I tried to see if I can represent it using these points, so that
using the X.
Yeah.
So the X would have to be rotated, but they're not all curves are going to be tangent. So then they're still going to that X is going to have one of the arms of the X pointing at the center of the circle. So I don't know how you would relate that. So
do you have like a T? Sorry.
Right?
Do you have like a T symbol that even that may not work, right? The T symbol?
Let me see something else. Just 1 second. Just an I. You just need an I symbol with the just something that not even that fancy.
What kind of script are you going to write to turn that symbol so that one of the important point is pointing at that center of the circle. You know, if it was as simple as turning on the radius lines, because that point is associated with that center radius, and the other point is associated with the center of the radius. If the radius lines were turned on and then trimmed to some distance that were dynamic.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to. So now I have this new symbol that shows up here, right? Now this eye needs to be rotated so that it's actually aligned with the tick marks. If we can bring in rotation, and I don't know if this is possible or not, it's something to check. But there is an angle that you can calculate on the ticks themselves. Even though it is not calculated right now, you can come up with the, let me say, okay, here. And you can come up with what is the angle of this, or the orientation of this tick line. Because you have a start point and you have an end point. Based on that, you can calculate on the ticks themselves, and from the ticks you can potentially transfer it to these guys, or we'll have to continue automatically generating this tick. I don't want to mess too much with the parcel fabric because it's got dependency. So I don't know if you clicked on this. I mean, you can, is there any rotation field in here, or is it not possible to add it? It's probably a question we'll have to check into. But I mean, maybe then you still continue maintaining the ticks, which can be auto-generated, which kind of makes it a little bit tricky. Because going forward for the new ones, we don't want you to sit and draw this little 5 feet line. It
No,
has to
we
be
probably
somehow
wouldn't.
coming up automatically. Yeah.
If that was a part of the workflow, that would probably cease.
Yeah. I can think of getting a point here automatically, and when you are digitizing and then you're saying, okay, there's a the radius, can we catch it from here, from these curves? You have the distance and bearing on that line there. Is this a curve? It says it's a curve. I just want to see which. Both of these are curves, right? So what's my attribute that would say? It would be taking this line information and generating something that's perpendicular to that, or not exactly perpendicular, but radial. So we can probably take this information and get to it. That's the only thing I can think of, but it's something that we need to look at a little bit further in order to automate these guys. But yes, taking this one here, and if you say everything's beginning of curve, then we're good. We don't need to worry too much. We can go and change these to reflect exactly what you want, like ECE, BCE. And then there's some center point. I don't know if you noticed that. Street tick mark. Could have been 3, I'm thinking. I'll turn that up. That looks terrible. Yeah, it says 3 comment, and 3, I think maybe POB. Then you'll have to look for 1. Why we had 1s? Because you were not expecting any central points, I thought. But see, there's a central point there.
Actually, that's the BC of, so Sunrise Core is actually curving just slightly in the northwesterly direction. So that's why there's a tick mark at the beginning and end of the curve along the center line.
And this is a perfect example of where, if you're not paying attention, you would miss that there's a curve there.
Okay. Okay, there's some of these ones.
We talked about this with Somas, about how some of our arcs are going to come in and they're going to get chunked out into little chords.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was a good description of that one. You know, it's like nine little segments. The good news is a lot of it doesn't come over. So in
No,
that regard, not as
I don't-
bad as we had thought.
It's curious why there's no real method to the madness on which ones come across as chords and which ones come across as pure arts.
we couldn't understand that because some have them and some don't.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's, I don't understand it
Wonder-
either.
Wonder if we can trace it back to a specific draftsman.
Could be. I bet, you know, I did notice that 99% of those were related to D. Weber.
That's
So
probably a
it-
99.9% chance.
Yeah.
That's correct.
You might have a better odds of getting COVID.
Yeah. You know, it might be. Maybe it's all related to Debbie.
No, don't speak ill of those people who don't work anymore. You got to pick on somebody who's still getting a paycheck.
Okay,
Well,
so
Debbie
we
did like 99% of it. So even though she might have one that worked in this way, it could have been that when she was editing it for some reason the workflow didn't quite work the way she had hoped. And then later on, maybe it was a glitch in the Academy system when she would go in there and edit for whatever reason. And then it just, because Academy has a lot of bugs in it. So
okay, so now we can see visually which ones are those, like 1, 2, and 3s. These are the ones that say 2 there. Then you have 3. I would have expected a 1 and no, sorry, 2 and a 3 here, but it seems like you only have, yeah, there's only 1 there.
So
You
Harita,
don't. Mhm.
I guess the difference is that, let's say, tick marks that are along the right of way are one number, let's say ones. Tick marks
Yeah,
that are
there
along the center lines are twos. And I bet you that tick marks along a private center line will be like a 3.
Let me go to one of these. The tick marks are along the right of ways too. So this, I don't know exactly if that's the case, but
they seem to
can
be
you-
like twos. Twos are on the right away, but the ones in the center points are the maybe the center line.
yeah, there's every one of them has a comment on it, which puts them in one of these categories. Yeah. Okay. So you don't want to like lose this information, but it should be in a field better than comments, I think. You may have to think about this, Ted, because comments field usually people use it for comments, and then they can actually use the same definition.
Well, it
So-
seems to me that we should add a type field
Yeah.
in that data set. Maybe you
It
guys
is
could
not-
add a field, call it type, call it 1, 2, 3, and
Right.
then come up with a better naming convention than 1, 2, and 3, and then
Yeah.
do another. And it
You know
doesn't
what I
have to be a subtype, but you could at least just call it type.
Yeah.
You know what I
Let's-
just noticed?
Mhm.
The tick marks along the right of ways are probably ones. Center lines, like we says, twos. Threes are curves within property lines. So if there's a property line that's curving, that would have a 3.
Definitely center line ones are ones. You're right. The ones along right of way happen to be 2 over here.
hmm
Let's
So
look
if
at a 3.
Right. Look around the property lines, interior.
Yeah,
go.
it seems like. So that's good. Yeah, I think that sort of matches up. If you want, we can, like do a select and then analyze those. But I
So
do
you guys
notice your
are
trend.
writing this all down, right, Rita?
It's being recorded, this meeting, so
Yes, it is, and it's right. It's being recorded. So
we're gonna transcribe that later. So yeah, this one is all there. So yeah, you need a type field, and you can say center line on the tick marks. You can say just like this 1, 2, 3, right? Center line and these things.
I would
If
rather have type, and then I'd rather have. You can still have 1, 2, and 3 in there, but we need some descriptive 1, descriptive 2, descriptive 3.
right, and then you will have to figure out, okay, if there is going to be, and I don't know why they were missing in some areas. Like we went a little bit, in some other areas where there was a cul-de-sac and that was missing there. I don't know why. Was that something that you decided not to have them there, or delete them after? Of course, they're being auto-generated in CADME, so just decided to delete them. Here, I think they're present here.
Yeah. That first one we looked at, they didn't have any of them, so could be just another glitch.
Yeah, just knowing that you still need them is, and along, yeah, the right of ways, all those purple ones that we're seeing. Okay.
Like I said, it's not an instance where you have a tight curve that's easily noticeable. It's where it's in something where they're generated on a 1,000, 10,000 foot curve, and you can't hardly tell that there's a curve there. That's interesting to point out, so that you don't just draw a straight line when you're trying to do some association to center line. But when you have a tight 30-foot radius curve, you don't necessarily need to see it. It may be helpful when a curve's not tangent to know that because you'll be able to see that it's not perpendicular to the line that's coming in that's creating it. So pluses and minuses, I get it. Does, to me, it personally adds a lot of junk to drafting.
Right. Let me ask you one question. When you could have some curves which are like continuous, right? So there's one curve ending and then another curve starting. That could happen. And do you have 2 tick marks in that case, or you have only 1 tick mark? Because it needs to point to the center of the radius of the curve. And
and in that case, right at the PRC, the point of reverse curve, you're going to have a tick mark going one way and a tick mark going the other way. And if that is a tangent PRC, then they're going to be on the same line. If that is some kind of a broken back curve where that line is not straight, then they'll be pointing in different directions, and you'll be able to see, as you zoom in, you'll be able to see that those aren't pointing at each other, and then you get a call out that that's a broken back curve, and that is not a straight line from center radius point to center radius point as in a perfect PRC.
okay, is there a possibility that you may have like not a reverse curve immediately following, but a different kind of curve, like one tangent curve and then another tangent curve right after, but in the same direction?
So you'll have compound curves where you have a radius of 300 and then you have a radius of 150, and then the same thing will happen. You'll come in at 150 and then there'll be a tick mark. But if that is a point of tangency where they have the same radius point, then you're just going to have one tick mark there. If the radius points are on the same side, if it flips, then same thing. You have a tick mark on the other side. But compound curves will have just one tick mark there. But if it's a broken back compound curve, you're going to have 2 tick marks pointing in 2 different directions, and so that'll be a red flag that it's not a tangent curve.
Okay. For us, for the beginning, I think we can say try to generate a curve. Then this is after you have everything in the parcel fabric is when we would like to do it. If it's missing, and then that's something.
Ted, we should reach out to SOMAS and ask them, because they specifically asked that question and we're going to put them in. So that would be something that's missing in the data that we got. And I don't know if we can.
No. No, we already proved the data. We already grabbed it. We can't go back to Patrick at this point. We have to solve it here now.
Okay.
We deal with that with a wizard. The PM won't allow that.
It's a nice thing in certain cases. If we can create it, that's great. But I personally don't think it's a deal breaker. The data that we're supposed to be relating it to is supposed to be, we're looking at a map, or we're looking at some kind of document that created those lines. So it's a point there draws our attention to something happening. And so if we have to look at the underlying data to find it, and pull the map or pull the document to find out what the radius of the BC or the EC is.
Oh,
Yeah, I think we need to do is we need to change the type description for the parcel fabric points to be more what you guys need to see. But to me, the tick marks are duplicated with the point data set. I think you keep them for historical purposes, but going forward, they're just going to be populated as part of the parcel fabric points.
so
What I would assume though is when you guys copy and paste the data from your workflow into the fabric, it's going to generate those points, I would hope. And that would be something we have to test out.
Ted, what we want to say is that we thought that we could symbolize these parcel fabric points based on a rotation angle, like make them, like create a new layer for this basically, and then have a definition query on this only if it's one of these, right?
Yeah.
And
So you're
and
not going to
then
create a whole nother layer. You're just going to make a copy of it in the table of contents pointing to the same layer, but you're going to handle it differently from a symbolization.
yeah, it's like sort of like an alias of that layer, right? So the only thing that we're noticing is that there isn't any, well, there's some which say center point as one, right? So there could be a curve in that location. So for example, maybe this other one. But what I'm trying to say is that if there's more information, maybe these can be displayed in such a way so that they can, instead of drawing a
That
tick
point
mark.
there is a radius point from somewhere that's probably pretty far away. So
Yeah, it seems like
if we
very
started
far.
there and just started looking at 50, 100, 150, we'd eventually find a curve that's associated with that point there, and it hypothetically it could be 5,000 feet away.
Yeah, I agree. So for example, maybe here, oops, I was doing, okay, maybe somewhere here. These points here, let me try to get this specifically.
That one there is going to be going to the center of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, it does. But I'm trying to see, is there any information there at all that might, help us align those points? Now this one's a center point, so it's okay. Unselect, highlighted. So this one here, is there anything that will tell us which direction it is so that I can align my eye, that eye symbol that we have to that, and that should basically help it. But I don't see an angle field. We can probably calculate the angle field, and that's what I'm trying to find out from Ted. Is it something that we can do? Create a rotation angle field in here and then calculate that.
Can you does GIS have the ability to draw a line from a arc to the center of the arc? Is that a command that you can do?
Yeah, that's the other option. So for example, we didn't use this layer and we still use the tick marks layer, right? You already have, we can identify all the segments in your data that are these arcs based on the information that we have here. Like if it's got a radius on it, right? So query them out, everything with radius, and then take the starting points of those curves and endpoints, and then generate something that's, going radial. That's automatic. It's possible. Yes. So let me add this layer again. Go to the properties and definition query. say record radius, if it's got a record radius on it, for example. I shouldn't have hit that button. I should have just said is not null. So anything that's got a radius, we can recognize those, right? And then we go after those curves, and then we can, and this is something I'm just thinking out aloud with Lata so that you can, think about this. But to be able to, generate something, and that needs to happen within your edit session. So it's something that we'll have to do it after you finish joining your parcels in there, because that's your, criteria. And after that's all done, then it's something that you can, just take those lines with this layer will be there. It's easy for you to just select everything in that layer and then generate those tick marks based on that at the start and at end. You may have duplicates, so for example, what I mean to say here is that you will have this coming this way. If you had another arc going, then for every arc you'll have the start and the end. So that's something we can do. We'll have to figure out the radial part and how to get a line towards the radius and trim it off at that 5 feet. That's what that needs to happen. It will be like a Python thing that we can.
Okay.
Yeah, but we'll check the feasibility of this. Ted? Hello?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, these are the radial, all the ones that you see in the orange there are your arcs with the radius. And those are the ones that will need the tick marks. We're not talking about changing anything on the older ones. We're just saying there could be a tool that says generate tick marks and based on just that layer.
But we're still going to populate the type field to be more descriptive, and we're going to make a type field in the tick marks called type to remove the values from comment to type, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's something I'm asking, should we do it like right now, or should we go ahead with our...
Yeah.
Okay. So
not right now, but after the meeting.
Okay. Then that will actually resolve all of our issues, I would say. That would resolve the topology issues that we were facing, in the sense that we were not able to.
During the post meeting, we moved the post meeting to, we do the same thing we did with electric. We take the post meeting and convert that into the topology and advanced data reviewer, and then we do another post meeting the week after. Like the 21st.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our next meeting, I mean, let me go and check on time. Just 1 second.
5 minutes, but
yeah,
I want to be able to see this with the Cadastral team, what you guys did to the parcel fabric points, where you've done some description changes there. You've added a type field with street tick marks with descriptions for those, for the comments, and then you do your little, whatever you're going to do with this additional tick marks for the not null radii.
Yeah, that's something that we can think about, like going forward. But I'm actually kind of concerned about the timeline too, right? So we will try to. So here's the thing. Right now, there's a few things that we need to do on the schema and a mass calculate for these points to work. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let me also show you your topology.
The reality is we're going to have 2 weeks before the 31st. So get it done like the week of the 19th, and then you got another week. We just got to be live editing. Going forward up to the 31st, I think, hey, like the stormwater, wastewater meeting that we're supposed to have, technically we could, in my opinion, we can have that in November because they're already editing.
Yeah, we'll want to only do the ones that are like whoever is in production, they're kind of okay. Whoever's not in production is the ones that, let me show you your other one, which we were the topology rules and how they panned out. Okay.
And so some of this stuff for Ezra and Doug, I'll probably help out on some of your topology cleanup. I'll probably stay away from the fabric for the most part, but I mean, like the cleanup for just topology checks, that's something, another thing that Ken might help out on. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to assist a lot of people on doing some of this cleanup, but I don't know how much guaranteed time we can allocate towards it. But topology is going to be a little abstract for you guys in the new world, because we can define rules between layers. In the coverage world, we can only define it within itself. So like you do topology between parcels and everything, that kind of like how you guys talked about how you have to do an edit feature and you do an EF on center lines, and then you jump out of the EF and do an EF on parcels. You kind of have to do, that's the way topology worked too. It worked within itself for its coverage. But in the geodatabase world, just like editing, how you can edit all the data at the same time, you can also define topology rules that you could not even conceptualize in the coverage world, where you can do a point data set that exists over here and say, oh, it needs to be stacked, or they need to not be stacked, or they need to be covered by the parcel, or they do not need to be covered by the parcel, right? So there's and before it was a point data set that was not even in the address points, was not in parcels. So you could never build a relationship or a topology between parcels and address points in CADME, but we can here.
Let me show you what you have. And I dragged in the topology, and this was like my copy in the file geodatabase because I didn't do all those calculates, right? So now you'll have this, but I'm going to don't worry about the symbology. This is not your symbology. It's just some random thing that ArcMap is doing for you.
And I'll also say is when we do this topology, we're only going to do it in your work areas originally. If we generate topology across the board for everybody and we do a full validation, you're going to have thousands of errors potentially, and we don't really want to see. Well, actually, your topology, if I recall, is pretty good. There's only a few that are 8 here, 16 there, 5 there, but it's nice just being able to focus your work areas down, so you don't get overwhelmed. Like data review is the same way. If you have too many checks, you get overwhelmed with all the reviewer checks, and we'll be adding more reviewer checks. So
we basically only want to check the stuff that we've recently drafted, unless we want to open up some other kind of can of worms, because there'd be times in the old system where you'd open up a tile and you'd work on it, and then you'd find an error from some other that was from a previous drafting session that somebody just posted that got reposted that you eventually have to try and fix. But
well, like what we'll do is we'll have topology checks where, or let's say topology for data reviewer, we'll want to basically clean up the fields that you guys are editing that might have null values. But like I was telling Elijah just the other day, we might pull some of those null value ones out of the sewer, because right now there's 80,000 null values in this one field. Do we want to have 80,000 records in the data reviewer tables until we get to the point where we're 50% complete? Or maybe what we do is we set it up as a separate reviewer check. And we're going to say, hey, we're going to look for all the null values. We'll run that once a month. So you don't have to run these every day, every time you check. The bottom line is the more checks that you have, whether it's topology or data reviewer, because they're both basically trying to clean up your data, just one's spatially, one's attribute, and more, is the more checks you have and the more you run them and the more you do it on the more data, the more confusing it's going to be for you to clean them up. So if you focus on current extent, like you can do in data reviewer, and you can do the same thing in topology too. You can just do it on the current extent. Where you're working, that will not necessarily overwhelm you across the board. You'll start to see this when you're editing. Like, to me, I like to do it across the whole city because I'll spend 2 months.
80,000 errors at 2,200 working hours a year, that's only 36 errors an hour, so it'll only take them a year. So Elijah seems like he's got that covered.
Well, it's some of the stuff with Elijah is just that he has fields that have null values in it, and the null values need to be calculated. You guys are going to have a ton of, if you look at the address points that, or the ADUs, if planning goes in and updates that, that's one thing, but if that's a whole field that's completely empty. So if we run a reviewer check on that field, because this is something that Tilden wants, he wants that all populated. So that's going to be filling up the reviewer tables based on empty values. And in my opinion, that's not, just know that it's empty and you need to fill it, fix it. Not, let's generate a reviewer check to say, oh, here's 89,000 null values for this one field, but we have 13 other fields. So now we have 89,000 times 13 filling up your reviewer table of all these errors, rather than, hey, those haven't been filled in yet. Let's not do that check yet.
That's only 0.6 a minute.
Yeah, okay, you guys are, you guys should have all been math majors.
I was.
Maybe you were a math major.
Okay.
You guys aren't going to spend full time maintaining the cadastral data. You guys are trying to allocate 1 day a week. So if you allocate 1 day a week, you don't want to spend, oh, this week I got to do 1 deed, but I have 350,000 other reviewer checks I got to get through, or errors from my reviewer checks. You don't want to deal with that.
No, I hear the GIS team's looking forward to that.
Yeah, we don't own the data, so we can ask permission if we're allowed, but until we ask permission.
You have my permission.
I'm going to edit everybody's data. That's my goal.
Hey.
1 day a week, I'm going to try to edit someone's data. It's going to be a version. Then you guys will QC my version, and if it's right, then it goes forward. If it's not right, then we'll delete it. That's the beauty of versioning.
Check.
But you guys will review my data for cadastral, and John will review my data for electric, and Candace will review my data for water, and Elijah will review my data for sewer, and Matt will review my data for planning. I only want to know this just because I just want to understand your data, and editing helps me with that. Because we're moving forward to the next platform starting November 1st for different workflows. Not necessarily you guys right off the bat. Because it sounds like you want to stay on the parcel fabric and ArcMap for at least a year. Did I understand that right?
We're taking your advice on that. We're not.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, because you were kind of like, well, hey, are we going to be on this for like 6 months or a year or whatever? And yeah, when I get the 2.7 beta, I'm going to take the parcel fabric. I'm going to take the fabric that we have currently. I'm going to push it into Pro. And I'm going to start testing workflows based on what Haritha comes up with. And so I'm hopeful within 6 months to a year after January, we can move Storm and Cadastral. Prior to that, we all moved traffic, planning, and streets. Those are the first 3 that go live on Pro.
If we have the choice of moving, however we're going to move it, Cadastral should be moved first because everything is associated to the cadastral data. So if nothing else, if we have the choice to do it, we should make the choice to move the cadastral, and so that the cadastral is existing and everybody can start piggybacking off the line work from cadastral.
Yes, I agree with you in some regard. However, like traffic planning and streets will just move to a client server. So their interface is Pro. Your interface is ArcMap. You're both connecting to the same data, essentially. Your parcel fabric will go to a service with branch versioning. So we'll do the same thing on similarly what Streets does, but now they're still using client server, which is the way ArcMap connects. You're going to go jump past client server and jump to services. I'm sorry, we should go back to Harita. This is a meeting we can have after.
Okay.
So yeah, I just wanted to show you, like, I think we already seen how the topology was built, but these are the feature classes that you have. And then you can give a ranking. So
Yeah,
the better the ranking.
We should have ranks in there. The point data, I wouldn't say none of that should be ranked as 1. Essentially, a rank of 1 means that the topology, if I have parcel lines and I have parcel lines set at a rank of 1 and I have parcel set as a rank of 2, if there's any sort of snapping, the rank of 2 snaps to rank 1.
Yeah. So you will have to prioritize that. I would say parcel fabric would be ranked 1, and the remaining ones will go lower, unless you have those control points or anything else that might be.
Yeah, I agree.
Street monument, things that are of a higher record of survey point.
But when we do that, we need to have, I mean, at least when I take the system down and I move it from test to production, I mean, we can go via, because that's probably, that's how I'm probably going to calc the legal points, the doc links for the production data. Is it once I'm going to take it to a file, do the calculation there, because I have to deal with versioning. Versioning is a pain in the butt. It has its plus, and then once we take it to the snapshot level, then we're going to push it into production. And as part of that, I can set the ranks. However, it would be nice if you guys could come up with a document that says, oh, city limit should be a rank of a 3. We can have 50 ranks. I don't know how many ranks we can have, but 5, 6, 10 different ranks. It's almost like a cascading effect. Parcel fabric is number 1. Any sort of control that you might use would be a number 1. Easements, any line data sets thereafter might be a rank of 2. Then the polygons might be a 3. And then like your legal points that are really just a center point of your polygon, whatever it may be, might be a rank of 4.
Yeah. So will the address point then?
Yeah.
They're for sure subordinate.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's the whole like the concept of ranking for Eswin and Doug. So we really should come up with a because right now everything doesn't move technically, I guess. But then it's lie-up topology. At some point you need a little bit of shift, but it's only going to shift based on the general cluster tolerance, which was 0.000032, which is probably smaller than what you guys are doing in CAD. Because you do have some shift within, if you were to do like a clean, I think there's some shifting with a clean. Not that you guys ever do clean, and maybe Build would do that, but I mean, I'm so far removed from Workstation that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that in the beginning you had some ranking there, Ted, but we recreated this. So I didn't actually set the ranks again on this file geodatabase copy. Okay. But whatever ranks you had would be preserved, at least for the time being, and you can change them later on. It's more like a schema change thing, and so that's why. As far as the rules, you see all of the rules have made it, but Lata, we had like 1 or 2 exceptions. She made a note of which ones of those are.
It's like easement polygon. Yeah, it's not.
The ones based on easement polygon, because there was no data in that layer, we couldn't actually, I think, create them.
And also the polygon, you don't need to explicitly create that. Topology is taken care automatically. So.
Yeah, just for the polygon itself. So these are the ones that we have, and then we actually generated a summary. Your data, is pretty good. There was a few errors on like CAD annexation must not overlap and so on. There's just a couple of errors here and there, but otherwise it's really good. There's only a total of 45 errors in there.
Yeah, when we moved the county, forward, we had upwards of 1.2 million errors Jesus and I had to clean up
Wow.
the first go around. And then that was at a cluster tolerance of 1. And then the next year we broke it down to like 0.5 and we ran it again. And we had more errors. And we kept going it down until probably year 3 or 4, probably 4, we moved it to the default cluster tolerance. And we had to have it high because we had people that didn't really necessarily, they had an AML that did all their work for them, and an ArcMap, you kind of have to do the tools yourself. Although it is, customized, but it's all out of the box. And so there were people that were still learning, and they didn't understand the difference between feature editing versus topology edge editing. And so we had it based on our lowest denominator of our weakest editors. Knowing that our strongest editors would say, oh no, I don't want that to move, a foot. But we also were 80 to 100 feet off in some areas. Your data is really tight. So you want to start off at 0.0032 right off the bat.
Yeah. The only, I think in this one, the only thing is that those points, those points could not be, and some of the rules failed because of that. So the partial fabric points, any rules related to that have not made its way here because I had to delete them. But other than that, your data looks like pretty good right now. Those were the few errors that you saw over there, like only 45, right? I validated it on this file geodatabase copy, not on your SDE. But validation is something that you would probably do when you are editing, just finished editing, and then you can, look in those areas. So for example, you have this topology, and I am trying to, let's say, start editing here. And I don't know why that half the screen is like, okay, it's asking for dynamic values. I think I'll turn it off.
It's because you don't have the table in.
Yeah, it's asking for that. But right now, I mean, I'm just going to skip that one. What we are looking for is, if you look at your topology, you do have the error inspector in this area, errors from all rules. You can search and it'll show you. This is the error inspector. You can go zoom to this one specific error, but sometimes when you zoom to it, it will kind of like go all the way out. So I'm going to, well, actually, you know what? I will go back here. Don't know if I can pan to that error. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So go zoom out from that. Don't zoom in, zoom out.
Yeah, that looks like some kind of point.
That might be a control point that's not in the city boundary. That's
oh, yeah,
outside.
you're right.
So
Right.
that would be an exception to the rule. Why is it up there? I don't know, but originally when you drew this, there were some points that were out. It could be the San Bernardino parcels.
Yeah, you can mark as an exception on that one, for example, right? And then
It might be a core state.
That could be your radii you guys were looking for earlier is 5,000 miles away.
It could be.
I think it is the same.
Yeah, I think that's the same.
I think the biggest I've ever seen is 10,000.
Okay, it's some auto control point. It's a, CLAR, GPS continuously. Yeah, course.
Yeah, it's a core station.
Reference station. Yeah. So because it's your core station,
It's
I'm
not
going
going to
to
be a part of it.
right, mark this as an exception.
Yep.
Then let's see.
And that's probably going to be what we're going to find for the 5 areas that are like that.
I said zoom to it.
You're probably right on top of it because it's just going to be a symbol on a point.
Okay, well, that means that your data is literally not having any errors because this one's an exception too. I would say all of these are on the control point. Okay, so I think that it's the same thing. If I say select features.
Yeah. Some of these checks, they seem redundant. They're different rules. They might be a little redundant, but to me, it's always better to come at it with different ways because they all kind of have their own purpose. It's kind of like the idea that parcel lines and parcels need to follow each other. So you got to build a rule from the line data set, and then you got to build a rule from the polygon data set, looking inward of each other. In this regard, this control point needs to be in the city limit. If it isn't, that's fine too. It's just an exception. But it also needs to be in the parcel. It also needs to be in the annexation. We could build multiple point rules based on polygons, and then they all just become exceptions to the rule, or whatever it may be. And these rules, we can in a year, we find that there's some rules that just are bad rules. We can remove them.
Yeah. So this is center line, and parcel fabric. So there's a relation. The must be covered by feature class of. So street center line must be covered by parcel fabric right of way lines, but there's no parcel fabric in this area. It's kind of like on the outskirts. So this is an exception also, correct?
Well, it's still, at some point, there's a center line there, but there's no parcel. Yeah, I guess, because that whole line might be an error. So what would be better if you went to go is click the show dropdown, where it says shared for all rules, and see if, or just do visible extent at this point. Click visible extent.
This might be a centerline road where we have some kind of services, whether it's water or electric, and we're serving it outside the city. So it might be because we have areas outside of the city that we provide services to.
Yeah.
And, well, in this regard, the parcel fabric line, if there's no line there, then all of those lines will be an exception. But if that's just a small little segment that the line doesn't exist, then I don't know if that's necessarily it's outside, but it seems to me that might be a valid error. If I can't tell if that's all red, so normally with topology errors it's red, but that little segment may be valid if the rest of that is valid line work. If it isn't, then it's all one big exception.
We're going to have a similar, if we have parcel fabric outside in Spring Mountain Ranch, which is the northeasterly area of the mapping.
Yeah.
That I recently drafted. But that's all going to be outside of city limits, but it's going to be served by city of Riverside sewer.
Yep. But are you guys going to generate parcels for that?
Does sewer like parcels generated?
Well, I don't know. It seems to me that it would be sensible to build parcels where the sewer lines are at, just so you have a basis of varying based on the center line. And that's just my opinion. But the rule that will be flagged will be the one that says you got to be contained by or overlap the city limits. You guys are going to have
maybe we add some kind of overall polygon that follows the city sewer area, city sewer service area, and then make that part of our rules. That if we have a polygon inside the city service sewer area, then it's okay.
Well, so we would, in that regard, we would have an additional polygon, and we would do a rule that would say if this falls inside of this, that would be the rule. You wouldn't be able to say if this falls in this, remove it from the areas that it's not in that sewer polygon. Like I can't do necessarily like a conditional statement that says remove all the errors that are not in the city limit but are in the sewer polygon. You would only be able to say specifically that those points are in the sewer polygon. Then they would not get even flagged, but they'd still get flagged for being outside the city limits or outside of a parcel, unless you had parcels for that area. But it's just literally you can go in and select 12, 15, 20 rules in that area and just mark them all as exception, one at one time. You can select more than one rule at a time.
Because that's if the fabric is created out there, that's going to have APNs. That's going to have address points.
Yeah. I mean, it's up to you guys. It's you guys either generate or you don't generate. Just know that if the data that's out there for a lot of your rules, you would just mark them as exceptions. They're not. It's not a bad rule. It's not a bad error. It's saying, hey, it doesn't exist. But for now, it's fine because this is data that we maintain, but this isn't data that we have. We don't have address points out there. Oh, now we do. Oh, there's address points. Address points need to align with parcels. But we don't have parcels because it's outside the city limits. So for those address points, it's an exception to the rule, or whatever is out there, right?
Yeah, the exceptions are a good idea. That's the way it should be.
The only thing you don't want to deal with exceptions is if you get to the point where you have hundreds of thousands of exceptions. I don't say that lightly. We had a problem at the county where there were 4 people in the world that had our problem because we didn't have right-of-ways, and we had people that were making tweaks inadvertently in the right-of-ways. And what it was doing is we had so many exceptions along the right-of-ways. The right-of-way, where you have parcels must not have gaps. When you remove the right-of-ways, now all your parcels have gaps. So this is something that we'll deal with like zoning or planning. Or GP, but when you don't have these gaps and you set that as a rule, all that's going to show up as a problem, and so you just mark them all as exceptions. Well, when you have 800,000 parcels, we had a lot of exceptions, and the recommendation from the topology team, the editing / topology team, was you need to fill those in. What your rule is valid, but the topology engine never knew it was going to have to handle that many problems. And so we just filled them in because it was easier. But they actually created 3 patches for us to help fix it. But every time they'd apply a patch, there'd be another little thing like, oh, the topology engine is causing problems this way. I mean, we were like putting the topology engine on afterburner, basically, on really hitting it hard with the county. But what was just the easiest approach? Just fill in the right-of-ways. We removed the right-of-ways because that was the whole problem with some people didn't understand what a feature is and what is an edge. And an edge is like if you have 2 parcels and you have 2 polylines that sit on top of one another and you want to edit both lines at the same time, that's an edge. If you edit it as a feature, then you'll actually introduce a gap. And so a feature would be I'm editing one single line of 2 overlapping lines. An edge would be I'd edit both lines. And we had to remove the right-of-way because some of our people couldn't understand what an edge was. So we dropped it because it was easier that way. But then we came across another problem. We said, heck, this is 5 years later, 10 years, 8 years later. You're going to know edges now. No, there's no excuse. And then in that regards, that's when you start looking at, okay, maybe we need to drop the rule if there's thousands and thousands of errors. So for you guys, there's only 89,000 parcels. So small number overall, big for the city, big for us, the county. But as an entity overall, it's still pretty small. I mean, I don't know. How many are in Orange County? You guys know? Although County Orange is pretty
No,
big.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say we did run into something that actually gave like 800 or so errors. I'll have to go back and check. But we did run into that situation, Ted, where we had like too many errors and it said, and I had to actually remove that rule, I believe, in order to get this working.
There's going to be some, and to me, it was just trying to come up with a bunch of rules to make the data super clean. But inherently to all this, we still sit on top of the fabric. The fabric has its own topology applied internally that we can't change. And if there's rules that cause errors, we just remove the rules at this point. What we see right here is the data is super clean right now. I mean, this data is pretty sparkling clean. And if there's 800 rule problems, isn't really a big deal. Trust me.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it said 800 plus, so it kind of hit a limit, I believe.
Yeah, but if it's triggering errors, then we probably almost want to drop it. But we almost want to know the rules so that we could look at it on the side, because maybe there's something else going on in the geometry that we're going to get a gotcha later on. So, because coverage to the geodatabase it works, but there's still little gotchas. Like what you guys have seen with the vertices that get generated on some lines, and on some lines they don't. Because the husband decided to go one day and said, I don't want to cover today. I just want to add lines. I want to heads up digitize. I like to digitize. I know Doug keeps talking about drafting, but today I'm going to rebel. I'm going to do heads up digitizing on this arc in the middle of the center line. And now we have a bunch of vertices there.
Yeah.
Shame, Eswin.
You know I don't like that. Digitize.
So it would be nice to know the error, Haritha, but if it's better to leave it off, it's fine for right now. I mean, we're still, everybody's learning everything. So there's going to be some errors people are going to make in the next year, and we'll resolve it when we come across it. ArcMap is still supported until late 2024, early 2025. I mean, we'll be off that by that time, but I would just say flag the error as a side note if possible, or identify the error and identify the problem that was happening, just so we know as a potential gotcha if you go back to this. But there's enough rules here to hold a lot of us over. So.
Right. Okay. Just a second. I was trying to see if I can get to those errors.
So you got the thing is, so the thing with topology is you'll have to, she's not doing it yet, but you'll go in there and, oh, there's 2 points that are sitting on top of one another. So what's the fix? Maybe you take the 1 point and you move it off because they can't overlap. Yeah. So you would basically just go to the one line, move it off the other line or whatever, and then you'd revalidate your area, and then you come back and say, oh, there's no error there. In Pro, they'll actually have a little button that it's a little more intuitive in Pro for topology. But Pro is built on top of this, what you see in front of it. So.
Right, so here's an address point. Maybe let me select features.
You got to turn on address points.
Yeah, I think what happened is they're on a different layer. Because the parcel fabric kind of seems to.
There's address points right there. You just got to move it to the top. Maybe it's just another thing where you, when you're doing topology cleanup, you almost want to. This is my opinion only. The templates look great, but I want to have everything as simple as possible. So if I'm looking at address points and I'm not looking at all the individual address points, from a symbolization standpoint, I'd take the address points and just convert it into a simple symbol. And you guys will be able to do that with your own MXDs when you're editing. You'll find workflows that just work for you.
Yeah, it does not contain, I think it does not contain this whole, parcel that you see here is one parcel and doesn't contain any address points. And that's why we have this.
Which is an exception because that's really just
it's an exception, yeah.
That's the Santa Ana River.
Right.
So there's a lot of address points in there, but they're not official address points because they're only in tenths. And I don't know if they assign address points to tenths, but that's something we should probably think about doing. Because we have to notify them for our Everbridge stuff. Or we try to, if we have their phone numbers, we have to notify them. So it'd be nice if we had updated photos where we could track where the homeless people are and then assign tentative address points. Isn't that that's a good idea, isn't it?
Isn't that similar to contact tracing?
Maybe.
We've got mobile addresses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's actually see what happens if we violate these, rules and stuff like that, and how things work out, right? So let's go and check this. Take this address point and then
move it into the one behind it.
Move it into the one behind, like right here.
Yeah. Because there's no address point in that one.
Right. So, so we can say visible extent only here, and then we can say search now. Editor, save edits.
And you have to turn on the dirty areas.
Sorry? Oh,
You
yeah,
gotta,
the
you
dirty
gotta
area.
go into topology, double click on topology, the properties, and go to properties. Go to general, think, or source, or selection, or what, rules, or something, display. How about display? Nope. Somewhere in there, there's a way that you can turn on dirty areas. Because right now you're not showing dirty areas. You just made a change. And
Yeah.
you know what I'm
just-
talking about. There's a
Yeah,
way to
yeah.
turn on topology. There's a way to turn on dirty areas. Dirty areas are going to be a blue hash pattern, and it's going to show you here's a dirty area. Once you make that change, you have to validate the data to then identify what's what.
Yeah, so this is basically selecting, we don't have a map topology. We are not doing these kind of, you can trace and share, do the common edges, but we're not doing that. We're not going to be using these as much because you're going to be using your parcel fabric and all that. So that's where the inherent parcel fabrics topology is handled. If you have anything else to trace, like maybe other boundaries, you can use these other layers. So this is for shared features, and you can validate the topology in this area, for example.
But it's still weird that that like green area, I'm assuming that hillside doesn't have a point in it. And so for whatever reason, it doesn't get flagged as an error. When it should be 1 point for one polygon.
Right. Okay. So yeah, this is the one I think.
Oh, because of
It came up to. I think I've gone through this one already.
this
But
is the
this-
one that gets triggered when you don't have type calculated in that point layer.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
But
so essentially the theory on that is that, at least this is my theory, is in a topology, you have a bunch of related data. So if I copy one data set that participates in a topology, essentially it copies all the data with whatever participates in that topology. Well, the parcel fabric is like another topology. So you're doing a topology within a topology. Parcel fabric is like a geometric network. It's combined of a bunch of uniquely identified data sets that are in a relationship, a spatial relationship with one another. So if I got a problem with one data set that's not necessarily directly part of the rule, it will have problems with other layers in the fabric that are participating. It's a little abstract. So the 1 point data set may not be in a rule, but because it's in a fabric with other layers that are in the rule, it will actually hamper down the problems with the other data sets. And I think that what you're seeing right now is a manifestation of that problem. She goes in and calculates, but then you already did that. Didn't you already do that for pointer?
I thought so. That's what I'm trying to see if there was anything else that would like stop it. Yeah, see, I already calculated the type here to endpoint on all of these. So this is something else. This is, I think there's a rule that's probably where you have too many of the errors, and that's why you saw that so many times repeated. So we'll have to check that further. But I did take care of that, but I think it's the other rule maybe that was having that 800 errors like I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Let me make sure.
Yeah, and if push comes to shove, we almost might want to just think about removing all the topology with the fabric.
Okay.
You know, internal to the fabric. Like, why have a rule between parcels and parcel lines if they should be kind of built into the fabric itself? Where it makes sense for the fabric would be, I need the fabric data to have a relationship with the centerline data.
Yeah. So let me show you what we have there.
And that's
As
just
far as-
something that comes back to when I define these. I don't know how it's going to behave. I'm going in with it spatially. These are rules that seem like they're valid. show me that I'm wrong, and then just remove them.
Yeah, this is the one that you did, like parcel fabric lines must be covered by parcel fabric parcels. There's already a rule in your parcel fabric to this effect. So if you are okay with us removing those kind of rules, we will do that, and maybe that will help, but I'll have to test that out offline.
Yeah, we test that out. Test it out, and then get back to us.
Right. So summary of items before our next training is that we will give you the CAD. We will give you the workflow for bringing in CAD. Okay. The other things are that what you have seen today as far as this other workflow with the sketch lines and everything, are you comfortable with that? Is that something that you would like to do? So we will add those sketch lines and those kind of things in there.
I think that's a good idea.
Right. And then we have the tick marks that we need to figure out. And then we are going to.
And then you got to rename some of that stuff if you can.
Right. Calculate the tick mark, calculate the points to be the beginning point, right? That's the plan on these lines.
Yep.
On
And
all
then
of
when you
these
guys
parts.
when you need total dominance on the database, like I told Ed, just tell me and I'll disconnect everybody.
Okay, sure. That I am going to ask you, Ted, what time do you want us to do it? Maybe I'll check with Lata and come up with a time, and I'll send you then we can.
Because Ed's going to be doing some changes, but he shouldn't be dying to Cadastral. He'll just be dealing with electric. So
Yeah.
4 o'clock. And
Yeah, maybe 4 o'clock.
Yeah. So we want to finish this sooner than later, and then our next training, we want to make sure that after our next training, Cadastral team will say that they're going to be editing everything in the production. Should be ready for that. So I would say has the Cadastral team been able to go back to their training exercise and finish that?
Yeah, I would think it would be good for them to use like the beginning ArcMap stuff to look at like geodatabases and just get overall familiarity with the software itself. Maybe not necessarily into the detail of editing, but certainly, you know.
Did you get a chance, Doug and Aswin, to look at the documentation we provided so far?
We've figured through it. It's when we get into editing like we did the other day with Eswin, it's something that we have to get in and start drafting. So we have to take this subdivision and draft it out, and then see which direction we're going to go. So it's
Okay.
Reading through the documents it's hard to read without having something open. So we can't take this home and read it without having something that we can draft with, and neither one of us has the ability to do that at home. We don't have any VPN into our computer, so we have to try and do it around our work schedules here, which is not working out right now. So we have to figure out a better system to set aside some time. So drafting is going to take some time. It's going to take us to have to learn it.
Yeah, I would say somehow you'd have to prioritize this because the time's kind of like slipping really fast, and we only have like until October 31st to make sure that you're ready in for production. Let me show you what I mean. The document specifically. I'm going to open up the.
I haven't printed up. I've got your stuff printed up sitting right here on my desk. I can read it, but I can't read it and then come into work and use it because I still have maps to check, and I have by city ordinance 2-week timelines to get stuff returned to customers.
That's time
so
sensitive too, right?
It's very time sensitive, or I'm breaking the law as far as city rules and regulations are going. So we've got to, although this is good, it's hard to set aside that time when we have stacks piling up.
Why worry?
Hashtag resist, Doug.
I know that's where the ideal. Yep, I've got that version 1.0 sitting right here. Ideally, it would be nice to spend 10 to 20 hours a week working on this. Realistically, once we get done with these meetings, it's hard to get another 10 or 20 hours out of the week and get the other stuff that we need to accomplish done. So we're struggling a little bit on time, but we're trying to get through it. So when having the videos of you showing us stuff so that we can look back at these when we have time, that's more important to us at this stage of the game.
Okay, let me show you something. I know that videos are really, the best way to sort of like communicate, learn. You can pause a video, do the same thing and all that, right? So we've sent
Yeah.
you these videos in the past. This one is your own video, like I sent it to, like the one that Esvin showed us, the workflow. But the remaining ones are the ones that Cash has created, and we've sent these also to you to look at. Okay, these kind of like cover all your workflows. Take a look at them and then tell us if you have any questions on any of those workflows. They're not too long, I believe.
Like
So
5 minutes.
yeah, so these are
Okay.
really nice, nice for you to look at and then say, oh, what do you do this? And maybe follow your work, try to do the same workflow on your computer with in a version or something, and then let us know. And if you have any questions, I would say, like, compared to all the other teams, we were saying, okay, documentation. I would say this is the first team we're giving you specifically videos, because your workflows are not like simple. They're a little bit more complex than the others.
Yeah.
And
And unfortunately, most of the other teams are strictly GIS, and that's their position is GIS, and ours is ours, because the GIS team that did Cadastral is no longer at the city. It became something that we took over. So
right.
it's a subordinate to what the other stuff that we have to do. So we're kind of in a different spot than most of the other divisions: water, electric, sewer, storm drain, where we have specific people that are tasked with
Yeah.
doing this. So we're trying to figure out how to get the proper amount of time delegated to this, because we know it's important to understand it so that we can buy off and let you guys go about. But
Yeah.
right now we're having a difficult time with that.
Okay, so our plan here is this. Our plan is that for the CAD, we will create a video like this, send it off to you for the CAD, bringing in the CAD data. For our workflow, that subdivision that we input with the all of the tracks and everything, we'll try to put in the whole thing. I was wondering if, Esvin, you had calculated all of the values that go into that subdivision. What I mean is,
We don't.
like, you
The only
calculated
thing,
this.
we calculate the center line, and as he got that calculated center line point in, if we weren't time sensitive on trying to get that drafted so that we could give you something to look at, we would have taken that center line and continued on the north line and go all the way around and close that loop back in on itself.
Right.
So
Okay.
that would have been the only calculation that we would have done outside of the GIS or CADME world, would have been that original calculation. And even I probably would have done that calculation, because we can do a proration inside of CADME. And I don't know if Eswin did it outside just to show that he was calculating something, but CADME has the ability to take a line that's 100 feet long, and it's measured at 99.9, and calculate it and split it into 2 pieces, 4 pieces, up to 15 pieces in different length that are prorated compared to that. So I probably would have done that inside of CADME and then continued to draft around. So it's there.
I am. Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to make
there
a
wouldn't
quick
have been any
note.
other calculation as far as that. The rest of the calculations probably would have been strictly inside of in the CADME software.
Take a look at the proportions.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to. Right, because there's okay, so we'll check on that one, but what I'd like to say is, at least for now, we'll at least give you the workflow that we have done in order to come up with where we were that day. Like this video will kind of clean up and give you something that you can look at, or how we did that. So those being said, and there is going to be one on topology, we can, certainly add that over here, the topology one.
And
And we'll
topology
try.
we're going to lean on, Ted, with on when it comes to stuff like that. Eswin and I are more concerned about drafting the line work in as far as the stuff behind the scenes that is more technically GIS stuff, that we're going to lean on other people to tell us how to do that, or even set those for us. I don't think that that's something that we have the skills to be setting or making those decisions.
Within a couple of weeks, you guys will have the skills.
We are for sure not GIS analyst, and as far as GIS settings going, I don't know if that's something that we should be tasked with at this stage of the game, and maybe down the line we will be.
Within like a month, you guys will be expert GIS analysts.
Then I'm going to have to move my chair.
We're going to transpose you to a new analyst.
So I'm assuming that you have looked at.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm assuming.
So the thing you were going to look at is you're going to look at trying to maybe look at the parcel fabric rules and remove them and see how that works out too.
Yeah, the ones that belong to parcel fabric should be managed by parcel fabric. Yeah, I agree. So we'll do that. Meanwhile, I just want to make sure that you have gone through these, and then we'll send you those other videos also. This should be like, if you follow these, I mean, if you have any questions, do let us know. But we have a list of items to accomplish right now before our next training session, which
next Thursday, right?
Yeah, and then we'll add one more training session after that. That's what we'll do. To make sure that you are all.
Eswin and I aren't super concerned about drafting traverses inside of AutoCAD. So getting the line working, getting those lots in as lines in the construction, we're not super concerned about the difficulty with that. That's a drafting software that'll just mostly take a little time to get familiar with where we're pulling stuff down and how we're pulling out the command that we want. It's once we get that line work created, and then once we go in to create the individual parcels that are going to be a part of the parcel fabric, that would be the step that we're next interested in, is getting the line work coming in and getting those lines in the positions that we want, that we're happy with without challenges. That's going to be just drafting. And like I said, we're not super concerned about how we do that, because it's just pulling down a button and prorating, and if we have to use our calculates, we can prorate, and we can make that work. But once we get those parcels created, creating the parcel fabric and attaching that parcel fabric, that would be a step that we're not familiar with. And as long as we have some kind of video showing us, okay, we've got a lot created, here's how we attach to the parcel fabric, and here's how we make sure that what we've drafted is good enough to hand off to somebody who's going to post it for us.
Yeah, I think Cash got disconnected, but that was what he was trying to do initially when we actually saw that track map from you. I know that we got a CAD drawing from you also, and in that one you had the line work already for those tracks. And that's the line work. If we bring in that line work, that's going to like address your requirement, correct?
Yeah, and like we talked about last time, is the only difficulty with getting line work from somebody else is there may not be closures. A lot of times what you'll find with somebody else's line work is the line work that they're sending us isn't from what they're called the closure calculations. So these points might not be touching in certain instances. So that's where taking DXFing the outside boundary, or drafting the outside boundary, and then putting this line work that's given to us inside there, and then doing cleanup in AutoCAD and then shifting it over, might be the best way to do that. And if the mapping is so bad that we can't use it, that's when we'll hand draft the stuff in and make sure that we're good with it. So we'll have the ability to do either one.
Yeah, let me assume that all of the drawing is cleaned up as much as possible in CAD, and let's assume that clean drawing is coming across to GIS, and how we get that drawing into parcel fabric. That's the workflow that you want to see, correct? Not the CAD part. I'm assuming that you are going to do the CAD part
Yeah, so
separately.
taking the outside boundary, whatever outside, if we have a parcel that's closed like the one we have here in Streeter, the one that we've been looking at, where there's an outside boundary in all four corners, pulling that outside boundary out of a make a DXF and get it out and put that into CAD.
Yeah.
And put those two together in the AutoCAD world, and then bring that in as a clean drawing with the line work exactly where it's supposed to go within the tolerances that we like. Then move forward with creating parcel fabric with that. And then obviously what we've done with you guys here is draft the subdivision from scratch. And this is a pretty big subdivision to draft from scratch. And so but this is a good practice for Eswin and I to get in and draft this from scratch and then see how that works out. But like I said, the drafting is not what we're really concerned about. Is getting the parcel fabric created on top of that drafting lines.
Correct. That's what we're trying to see. Okay. It also got kind of like escaped me, but the side note on this street center line, when you digitize your parcel streets, to be able to create the street center line. And I'm assuming that you have a list of street names to pick from, or sometimes you may have to enter a new street name. You have a master streets table. I'll check with Ted on how that works, but at least we know that this needs to be generated from the other line work that's coming in automatically.
Yeah, and then once the subdivision is drafted, then we name the street, and I would assume we're going to be naming we're going to have to attach street plans to those lines at some point in time, because with this subdivision, although it's a private street, there are going to be private street plans that are going to have to be attached to those, and so somehow we're going to have to get that into play.
Document linking also will be handled. Yeah, we are going to include the document linking video also on that one, so that's one more to add. Okay.
As far as whether that's Eswin and I that are going to be doing that, or if Eswin and I are going to be training people how to do that down in land development, that's up to the city of Riverside. So we'll worry about that, but we should know how to do it.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So I think we kind of summarized all the issues that we will be, touching upon. Mainly, we will have more, everything else comes up to videos again. And we have had last week we had the training on the workflows, and basically on the data reviewer, and that's video is already given to you. We'll probably have them all in one location for you, so we'll go from there. I think at this point we're done with this meeting, right? We still have time. I'm sorry, we ran over.
These are all under an RPU network projects, DCSA City of Riverside RPU task order 3.
Oh, no. These are local, but you do have them on yours. Let me show your computer.
So you got them on YouTube and you got them on GIS videos.
So these are all of these are going to be on the YouTube that you keep sending out?
Yeah, they're already there.
Okay.
But if you go to when you're in the office and you want to go to videos, Cadastral, go videos and go to training. And then go to Cadastral. So we have videos and then we have training videos. So they're different.
Yep.
So in the workflows folder, you have all those videos.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So this is your local.
Yep.
Okay.
Harita, I have a question on the attribute painter, attribute assistant. So maybe we can discuss another time. It's like you want some IDs to auto-generate, things like that.
I think the only thing I have seen so far is for the new parcels to which they don't have an APN. Like if you just did a parcel merger or a parcel like splitting or parcel division, right? That's when they get a -9, or for any new ones that they don't have numbers on is a -9. Other than that, there is a tool inside a parcel fabric that will automatically assign numbers, lot numbers. So
Well, it's the lot numbers and parcel numbers are going to come directly from the map and the track map or parcel map. So it's going to be lot 1, lot 2 through whatever. In this case
yeah.
of streeter map is going to be through 30 something. Those lot numbers we will place in there, and those will just be strictly.
Yeah. But what you could do is instead of you going into attribute field and calculating 1 and then going to another one, going 2, 3, 4, 5. You start at 1, you draw a line to 5, and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So just sequential numbering. AutoCAD
Yeah,
is the same thing.
well, it's a sequential numbering tool that will speed up you attributing the data. Now, there's no tool, as far as I know, that can do that for ANO, if you need ANO, if you don't have feature link annotation. But there is a way to do that, you know.
Yeah, here's the numbering tool.
A double click.
And
There
then
you
it
go.
says start and then end. Right now, I'm not going to,
I'd build a
you
little
can
video showing how to do like parcel number.
yeah, I can say start with 30, incremental with 1. You can give a prefix, suffix, but you can say, okay. But then I think your parcel annotations would have changed. Let me doubt. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they already have numbers, but
See those,
yeah.
as we talked about before, those are the APN numbers, which are not the numbers that we're used to seeing as the automatically open display.
Right.
Because as far as legally described, they're not described by APN. So when we come into annotating a map that we've just finally drafted, finding faster ways to do it, like automatically numbering the lots and sequential numbering, whether that's available or not,
You have within your, not to cut Doug off, but you have your parcel renamer. You have different APNs. You have APN. You also have name. Name field is probably, if you go pan to the left, go to the left, go all the way to the left, and as you see with the name field, you got your 3132. That's what was calculated. So the default APN field in Fabric is the name field. You might have another APN. So this would be a calculation that you guys would do as an attribute assistant. The APN field that's further down to the right, I need that APN field to be equal to the name field based on APN or whatever.
See, APN,
if I calculate name to be 30, 31, 32, I need APN to show 30, 31, and 32. And then that would, we don't have book and page in here, do we? Do we have book and page or just assessor book?
We do have everything.
Yeah, I guess we have assessor book. We have assessor page too. That would be another attribute assistant, right? Because it can be pulled from the left 3. Then the next 2 is the page, and then the next one after that is the block, and then there's the parcel number, which is 3-digit, but they never go to the. It's always 0. It's always 024 099. They have never moved to a 100. I think I explained that before, but you can pull all that through attribute assistant.
Is there anything else? Anything else that the naming depends on, or this is it? Lata and me, when we were looking at the spreadsheet that you sent to us, we were thinking that you said you wanted to automate, but we didn't know the dependency on where you get these fields from. For example, we have the map book and map page, but we didn't know which map book and map page we get that information from. And they were all blank.
There's a table called owner info. It's what Esmond would commonly refer to as MetroScan, but it's from a newer company that we're using because we get it for free because our finance department's paying for it. Side fact. We got to make sure you guys have access to owner info, and we probably just have you guys do, like, I assume it would have to be some sort of join that you would then join based on APN with the owner info. And if it's not in edit dev, I need to copy it there because that would help you out on some of these fields.
Is that field already here? I mean, that table?
It's you'd have to go to the database.
See, at some point in time, those lots that we were just looking at have to be associated with the Moneta tract that was map book something, page something, and that would be lot, whatever number is on that map.
So it's a table, right?
Yeah, is it in there?
What table is it? Recorded doc, street plan key file.
Owner info or anything?
Hmm?
Owner info?
Nope,
owner info?
it's not here.
Not here.
Maybe if I go as the ARC user, I might find it.
No, table we should be able to see.
No, I couldn't find it there.
Yeah, it's not there. We don't have a copy of it.
Sure.
I'm looking at the ARC user. Even in the ARC user, it isn't here. Ted?
What? Let me look. I'll have to look. You sure? I don't. Seems like it should be there. You sure?
I don't see any. The tables are always outside, right? Unless they're inside Cadastral, they're not. Any table gets created on the outside of the data sets. And so if you look here, it should be all outside. There's recorded doc, street plan.
Are you sure it's not in the Cadastral feature data set?
I can go and look, but I don't think there is any table.
It's okay. It's all right. No, I'm copying it right now. So you can't put a table in a feature data set.
Yeah,
That was a trick question.
I know. But you never know, so that's why I check everything. I always check.
So I'll copy it out and I'll give you access. I get right now. It's used in the map database, but it seems to me that it's probably. I don't know how you do that in Attribute Assistant, but I assume you probably do like a join in the parcel, in the table or something. I don't know. I don't know how you guys probably should almost do a full-on class on how to do Attribute Assistant, but.
The thing is that we didn't know where those fields come from. You said automated, yes, okay, but we didn't know. So one thing we noticed was that, okay, there's a map and a book here, and they were all empty, I think, for all of them. I know that some of them.
It's populated for the track, Rita. When the track
Okay,
is.
yeah. I saw that. So
Not
one more
for
thing
single.
we also noticed was that not all parcels got all of the information. Some got filled only if it was tracked, some got filled only if it was like a regular parcel, some got filled only if it was the right of way. So of course that depends on what kind of a parcel it is, you would get that information. So Lata, I think you made a spreadsheet. Do you have that open right now that you're looking at it right now?
One thing I want to say is
Yes.
we don't want to handle owner info as a relationship class. It would need to be either a join or a relate inside of the MXD, and the reason being is that we're going to get updates for it, and we would have to kill the relationship class every time we do a load. So we need it more of a dynamic link when you see this. And if it turns
Okay.
out we can't do it, then I guess we'll handle that at that time. But because I'm totally cool with Doug and Eswin manually maintaining every single one of these fields in all 64 layers. So they'll have 10,325 fields to maintain. They'll draft the geometry and they'll calculate the 10,000 fields manually.
There's 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
So I guess Lata, do you have a spreadsheet that you would like to show us? Or
Yeah, I have it open. I can share.
let me make her the presenter. I'm sorry for exceeding the time, but there's so much that still needs to be.
Yeah, I have to take off pretty soon because I have a meeting at 1 to prepare for, and I have to eat lunch. But and I bet Doug Ken might be on there too.
Okay, do you see
Yes,
the screen here? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And you guys are
Yes.
consultants, so it's okay if you guys don't eat because you're consultants.
Yeah.
He's such a slave driver.
Such a humanitarian.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that what we're calling it these days?
We have a street layer that we haven't heard back from the consultant when they're going to build their geocode service. They're going to build a composite geolocator or a composite locator. So once we have that, then we'll send you that link. Versus the one we already have on the test, which is test. So we probably should build it on the other one.
And that one too, that doesn't come with all this information. See how these are categorized?
Yeah.
The current one only works for, you know, full address or just the street and this one. Sorry, these three. Current one works for that, but we need for this, which are these. Okay.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that they're going to tie a lot of that into the. It's going to be, I think, the composite is going to be like the center point on the parcel. So a lot of that should come from that probably. They're going to have an APN component to it. They're going to have. They said I asked for neighborhoods. I did not. 28 neighborhoods. That doesn't do me any good. And then the other one is going to be the address range. So it's going to be. Which is essentially the way I would do it. Go for the center point of the parcel first as being the number one component. The number two would be the address range. Number three would just be an APN.
Okay.
So conceptually, this is the way I think it's going to be set up for the geocoder. And then maybe they'll have other stuff in there, but
okay.
But they're still they're slow at this point. So they're pushing forward because next week we have our user acceptance testing on the city site. Which like Ken and I are going to be able to spend 2 hours a day touching. If we don't eat lunch, we'll be able to spend 2 hours a day. If we do eat lunch, then we'll be able to spend a half hour,
2 hours, 10 minutes,
hour and a half, an hour.
I thought you had multitasking nailed down, Ted.
It's really challenging. And then the week after, we have another week that's packed. So, and that's user acceptance testing too. And it's just for the city viewers. So it's GeoCortex. And I know you guys love GeoCortex. So nobody uses GeoCortex outside of the Riverside and 15 other cities in the world. So I'm still copying the data. When that data copies down, I'll let you know.
Okay. This is the address. We can do auto populate on this one. Okay. APN works right now as you add address point, the APN comes from the parcel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So street ID.
So we do parcel renamer. Parcel renamer updates the name field. And so we would need the APN field to pull from the name field.
Yes, that's for the parcel.
Address point, sorry.
Yeah.
This is the address point.
The address point. So this address point comes from the parcel, so which is good. When the parcel is done, we get it from there. So street ID, would it be from the street that we link,
street name,
right? That's
right?
why we have.
Should be the name of the street, the street, from the street
Yeah.
layer.
Street layer, it should come. So we should.
Does it? What's your alias? Can you pull out the alias a little bit?
Street name. Is it a
Street name ID?
It's not the street name itself. It's the ID of the street name.
This is the street name here.
So that's something that we're if it's not the street name, then it's not something that we're going to use. So no one's going to say, well, that's Streeter, and I know that that's 1247.
Yeah,
so
that's
street
what.
name ID is not going to be a search point that we're going to use on a regular basis unless you're Rain Man.
Let me switch to here. I see
it's there.
See, I see the street ID here.
It's over here on the fly.
Yeah, there, Lata. Let's
Yes,
see if we can grab it from the nearest street.
Yes.
So you're going to be grabbing the.
Remember, we were talking about the points, right? The
Yeah.
master street and the street points.
Mhm.
So do we have that?
Are the address points? I think that the address point should be placed close to the street that it belongs to, and that way we can grab the latest one. So, for example, look at that corner ones. The corner parcels are closer to the vertical streets, right? So
Yes.
that means that it will catch on from that instead of the other side. We just want to say that that needs to be noted.
Okay, let me see which one it's comes from. So that's a Montana. If I look at the address point that's selected, so that's Missouri Street.
Missouri. Yeah.
So it must be this one.
Going forward, you should place it towards the street where you want it to be rather than. So there's a little strategy in the address point locating, like where you put it. We're not doing this automatically, right? As soon as you create your parcels, you have to place an address point, and then
You
the
have to place
attributes
your
get published.
address point, and then you have to add the field for what street it's going to be associated with. So
No, it will grab, but you have to place it properly.
If a parcel has it, it will grab. Right now, the problem is parcel doesn't have the street names.
So get it from the streets, no? That's what we're trying to do. Get it from the street center lines.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
the work procedure. Well, unless you guys are coming up with a different work procedure, we've been dropping the point in, and then adding the data for street name. Not dropping the point in and then associating it with the street center line. So however that workflow is going to be laid out.
We're just trying to make it easy. You can,
We'll take that.
Okay. So let's do that, Lata. Let's make sure that when we say put the street point, you put it closer towards the street within the parcel to which it belongs. Like if you have two at the intersections of streets, especially, little bit attention there as to where you place it.
Okay.
And then you'll see the address label also show up, and you can say, oh, this is not that, and then you can go and correct it. That's a possibility.
Okay. Right now it works for the APN. So let's say if I put the point there, and the APN, see the APN picked up already.
Right.
These names are not there, so it's going to be coming from the full name. These names will come from the streets. That's what we're thinking.
Yeah, because parcels don't have it yet. So that's why we're getting it from the streets itself.
Oh, okay.
It will grab from the closest street. What other questions you have? Because we're kind of getting close to the other meeting too.
Yeah,
so.
like the map, I think those Ted is copying, right? So for the parcels.
You mean the table?
Yes. So
the owner info table.
Owner info table will get the other information.
Okay.
I go down here.
Yeah.
So if the type is track, then we need to populate the track name, track number, map book, map page. So
and where do they come from? That's your question, right?
Yes.
Map book and map page.
Correct.
Track number is assigned, right?
Track number is assigned, and if it's an older tract, it's just going to have a name, like right that area on the back side of that streeter map. That was at the time where tracks were just by name, so that was like the Moneta tract. So it's not going to have TR 37196. It's going to say Moneta tract. So that was going to be a tract name. The newer subdivisions have tract numbers, so it's going to be either tract name or tract number. And maybe for a very short time it was both. But then map book and map page are going to be populated, and then per each lot is going to have the lot or parcel number depending on whether it's tract map or
she's highlighted.
So it's going to be lot 2.
Right. What Lata did here is take the same thing, same table, like and depending on the type of the parcel, like whether it's a tract, whether it's a lot line, she's kind of like put that separately. And highlighted the blue ones that will be filled for that specific category. So for tracts, these are the ones. Where do we get the map book and map page from? Is there a grid that you follow, or that's not your QC grid, right? That's not your tile grid.
When the map records, the recorder gives it a book and page number.
So it's an input from your PDF.
It's an input from us when we draft it.
Okay, so Lata, those 4 fields that you highlighted, they're all inputs, manual inputs. Okay, they're not automated.
So it's coming from here, right? So
Yeah, from the book. So
okay.
that's a manual input. None of them are, so that's
So
what.
then
Mhm.
all these are like that, right? So record these, all of them. Manual.
Record map number, record block, record lot.
Sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of redundancy on that. And right below track name and track number, you've got parcel map number and you've got record of survey
Yes.
number. So those are record of survey number and then lot number.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, we're trying to do we're trying to automate things wherever possible, right? So we wanted to see if there's a layer with that map book and map page, but if it's coming from your book and you need to populate it, then we have to highlight them yellow, and that's what we did in your ArcMap. map. That if you have to populate it, then it's highlighted as yellow color.
Yeah,
And
you
that's
gave us this saying yes, whether this field needs to be populated.
automated.
Yeah, yes. So that's what.
now these numbers are going to be annotated on the map that we're looking at right now. They're just turned off and the APNs are turned on. It's for some reason we're used to not we would go into the GIS system and turn on the APNs and the map book page and lot number would be automatically turned on. So it's just how it is right now. But we're not necessarily going to search by lot, map book, and map page because most people that are going to be calling us and asking us to look at stuff are not going to know that that's what we're doing. They're going to call and tell us their address or their APN. So it would be nice if we could populate these, but it's not something that I don't know if we can automatically populate those from the data that's in the GIS system as it exists now.
See, for example, these two can come, right? Because we have these two polygons.
Yeah,
Let
they can
me
come in from the
color it
polygon.
blue. So we have a township range and PLS section. So which is, if I go in here, I have those.
So the moment this is for anything that you make edits to or any new parcels that you might draft. So for those, you're going to be getting the information, automatically, and then there's some that you will fill in from the PDFs and all. Now, data-wise, you may have some gaps, and they can be populated automatically by taking it from the other layers and so on. Yes, that is correct. But that's something that TED can look at, outside of this, and populate them automatically, like a spatial transfer if needed.
So owner info has now been granted access to DCSE, Cadastral, and IT.
Okay.
Okay, so that should have the all this information. This and then this.
You have to look at it. It might.
Okay.
Let's take a look at it and come back to you.
Okay.
How
Sure.
about that? Right?
Okay.
Yeah, let's take a look at it, Lata. Okay. So we have quite a list there, right? And if we have questions, can we contact? I mean, I know we've been posting them up there on the DevOps, but if it's like if you feel that it's better to go through emails or calls, phone calls, we'll be able to do that. But we might have questions coming up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
The only day I'm not here is Wednesdays, and of course Thursdays. Doug is telecommuting, so I think those will be the hard days for us to get hold of. But other than that, we're here.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Wednesday and
Sounds good.
Thursday, you guys aren't around, but you're still working, so you can still pick up a phone call, though, right?
Yeah, but we can't see Cadme or whatever it is that she could be asking.
Oh, yeah. But you can
when we're in the office.
You guys have Teams at home, and you can run Teams connected, and they can share the screen.
I've been doing Teams from my phone, and it's kind of bad.
Really, you don't have a laptop or something at home?
I have 2 laptops. One of my wife's working on when she stays home.
I run
Then-
Teams on my Mac at home. Like I'm not even connected to the network right now. On this
Well, we'll
machine.
come over and borrow that.
Okay. I'll let you do it part of my hair. I have a MacBook.
Hey,
there.
hey, social distancing. We'll have to sit in different rooms.
It's a big screen. Right?
I'll wear my
27.
Halloween
It'll be
mask.
easier. All I'm saying is that it's easier, but either, let's say on Wednesdays, if I'm not here, you're able to contact Doug. And on Thursday, if you try and get a hold of Doug, I'm here on Thursday. So there's always someone here in the office, no matter what.
Okay. Okay, good. So
But
go all the
we'll
way
be
down
here
to the
next
bottom.
Thursday for sure.
Go all the way down to the bottom and see if you guys can see owner info. Can you check for that?
Click on the data. Yeah, go that way. Yeah.
Right there.
Owner info. There it is on the left side.
Go to preview.
Table. Keep scrolling to the right. Let's see the fields. But there's a lot of records in there. 86,000.
Yeah, so there's weird ways they set up the data, and if we need, they combine fields together for whatever reason, like you see there. We could probably look to see if we get a new cut. We haven't done a cut on the data because Sonos won't let us update the data, but we could probably look to see if we get an update. And they might have more documentation too.
Okay.
Look,
I just
someone's
have
got
a.
minutes. Who's got the
Real-
meeting in 2 minutes?
Okay. No,
So you take a look at this, and then if we can help you out as much as we can on what the fields mean, but there's a lot of fields in here. We basically grab everything and then just put it in the table.
Real quick question: would you have new APNs like if the parcel is not part of your data yet, it's still going to be in here, correct?
It depends. They're getting this data from the assessor. The assessor is they got a group inside the assessor that gives out data that I think they might charge for it actually. Wasn't in my operation, but and so there may be some areas where they don't have APNs like the city, but they might be able to give it to people like HDL, which is the company we're using. I guess it's possible.
Yeah, we just want to be careful because if we want to set the precedence for, which one is. So if this owner info is more updated, then yeah, you can bring in the data because you're not able to see the geometry. You cannot make sure that this parcel is the same as that.
But what I can say is this data, there is a lot of value add. Like they don't normally have the 4-digit on the zip code, but they do populate that now. And they do that all after the fact because we asked for it. But
yeah, we'll take a look at this.
okay.
Especially in the new areas where we just looked at a parcel sample. We'll see how that matches up. Yeah. Okay. If so, no other questions, then I think we have a lot of questions, but I think we'll have to hold off because we have the other meetings coming up. Okay. So thanks everyone for your time.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Harita. Make sure you guys eat something.
We're going to get on those videos.
Eating.
Sure. Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.